Correct.
When I was a little girl, I remember singing the song, "This Little Light of Mine, I'm gonna let it shine." We've said it's time to bring in the light, and it's sure shining on all of us tonight. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you very much. God bless you all, and God bless Chicago.
Yay for our teachers! Yay for our teachers!
Number one.
We have also started looking at our borrowing practices and making changes there to save money. For example, we will be replacing high-cost debt, kind of like how homeowners refinance their mortgages, which we expect to generate $100 million in savings alone. We eliminated $1.4 billion in short-term borrowing from big banks, which is expected to save $22 million. We have also canceled contracts with vendors who have not delivered goods or services as promised. We will never tolerate being shortchanged in any bargain that we have struck. We are also cracking down on absenteeism and medical roll abuse. It should be an obvious point that city employees are expected to work a full day for a full day's pay. Now, most city employees work hard every day to deliver for the residents of this great city, but some do not. Those employees have been able to game the system for far too long. They make a mockery of the people who come to work every day and deliver for our residents, and those games are over.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Producer Dennis here at the Ben Joravsky Show. Today's Ben Joravsky Show for Wednesday, September 4th is going to happen. We're just going to start a little later, okay, at 1:30. We'll explain later. Ben's playing in pain today, people, all right? He's doing some show prep. He's medicating quite well at the moment, and at 1:30, we are going to bring you a brand new live Ben Joravsky Show. Who's on today's show, you're asking? Fantastic question. I'll tell you. Host of Humanity in the Headlines and a man who just loves to criticize Donald Trump, the one, the only Atiba Buchanan will be returning to talk with us. Trump, and more Trump. And we welcome a person who's never been on this show before, on the brand new show. We had him on in the last place, huh? I don't want to mention them. They fired Ben. It's the mortgage man, David Hochberg. Yes, he's a very opinionated man. He's very funny. He likes sports. I'm sure they'll talk about sports. It'll be fantastic. Let me get the camera on me. Hey, how's it going, everybody? They'll talk about sports. We'll get David Hochberg's opinion on Lori Lightfoot. We are now, like 106 days in with Lori Lightfoot. We'll get his take on that. Maybe we'll ask him about Lincoln Yards. And, of course, we'll talk mortgages with the mortgage man. Like I said here, we're going to be starting at 1:30, okay? But in the meantime, I'm going to shut off the Facebook live stream. Facebookers, join us at 1:30, all right? In the meantime, YouTube live streamers, Ben Joravsky and Mick Dumke of ProPublica, they had their first Tuesday show last night. They do it every month at the Hideout, 1354 West Wabansia. They talked immigration last night, and if you've yet to check out one of these first Tuesday shows, boy, you sure are missing a great time, all right? It's at the Hideout, 1354 West Wabansia, every first Tuesday of the month. And until about 1:30, I'm going to play last night's First Tuesday with Mick Dumke and Ben Joravsky. So we're going to play that. Like I said, I'm going to shut this down here for the Facebook live stream. I'll open it. I'll put it back up at 1:30. Join us at 1:30 for a live Ben Joravsky show with guests Atiba Buchanan of Humanity in the Headlines and the mortgage man himself, Mr. David Hochberg. We're going to do the local news like we always do as well. Be another fantastic Ben Joravsky show, people. So we will see you at 1:30, Facebookers, YouTube live streamers. Stick around. Let's check out the First Tuesday show with Ben and Mick.
So welcome to First Tuesdays, everybody. Thank you for all of those who are returning, and thank you for all those who are here for the first time. We appreciate you coming out. I'm Mick Dumke. I'm with ProPublica, Illinois.
And I'm Ben Joravsky with The Reader.
So we didn't come here tonight to talk about TIFs, though we always do talk about TIFs because
Just the drop of a hat.
Ben talks about TIFs. That's just what he does. Yeah. But we're very excited to have a couple of my colleagues from ProPublica, Illinois joining us. This is Melissa Sanchez and Jody Cohen. Thanks to both of you guys for coming. And last month, Ben and I had a couple of great guests who were able to initiate a conversation among the whole group who was here about the some parts of the healthcare system, and so we were joking throughout that we had solved healthcare.
Yes, we did solve it.
We just solved the whole thing, which is, of course, is why one of our guests came up with more information for us.
It's a great
in some ways,
sheet. Yeah.
It's a great sheet. In
Reader
some ways, no, we
appreciation.
didn't come here tonight to talk
All the
about
things we
tips,
got
though
wrong,
we
or
always
some of
the things we got wrong, and we appreciate that. But we're here to solve immigration tonight, right?
That's what I promised on Facebook. So we got about an hour to get it done. So let's get to work.
Well, first of all, we'd like to tell everybody who's here who is sitting at the table with us. So, Jody, I'll put you on the spot first. Who are you? How did you end up in this place? You can go longer than the Twitter version, but you don't have to go Tim Tutton length either.
I'll try the current Twitter version as opposed to last year's Twitter account. Okay, so I have been at ProPublica Illinois since it started, which was about 2 years ago now. And prior to that, I worked at the Chicago Tribune for about 14 years, and I mostly covered higher education. So I wrote a lot about the University of Illinois. I wrote a lot about the College of DuPage right before I left, Chicago State. Anyway, I know a lot about higher ed. And last summer, along with Melissa and our colleague Dua, we wrote about immigration during the zero tolerance period.
Sorry about that.
So I'm Melissa, and I was just realizing today's the day after Labor Day, and I started at ProPublica the day after Labor Day 2 years ago. I had a 13 weeks before that. I had a child, and so I took that time off. So I started a little bit after Jody and Mick. I was at the Chicago Reporter and Catalyst before that. These are nonprofit magazines. One is no longer in existence. I covered education mostly. And before that, I was in Miami at the Miami Herald and El Nuevo Herald doing a lot of political and crazy hijinks stuff. And for a few years before that, I was in Yakima, Washington, which is in eastern Washington state, so east of the Cascades, covering immigration and farm workers.
Right. Well, last year, you, two of you and our other colleague Dua came out with this story where you basically outlined how kids were being held in shelters scattered around the Chicago area, although until you looked into it, most people didn't even know, including some of the neighbors, that these shelters were there, and they were being held for sometimes months, sometimes longer than a year, and some of them had been separated from their families at the border during this border crisis that in some ways was created or at least escalated by the administration. Tell us a little bit more about the story and how you came at it.
Sure. So it started, you might remember last summer during Zero Tolerance, ProPublica. So we're in Illinois. There's ProPublica. Headquarters is in New York. It's been around for 10 years. And a reporter there, Ginger Thompson, had obtained audio of a child, a very young girl who was detained calling out for her mom. And does anyone recall this? And okay, so it... Zero tolerance was part of the national discussion, but that really brought it to a different level. And ProPublica has done some of the best reporting on immigration. And there was a discussion that started in New York about we should publicize or show where all of these detention facilities for children are located throughout the country because they are so secret. And Illinois, we joined in that effort to find out where the facilities were located here in the Chicago area. There had been some reporting on them in the past, but really not very much, considering that they'd been around for decades, like 20 years, the first one. And we set out to figure out where they were and as much as we could about them. So it started with the question of where are they, and then what could we tell people about these very secret places?
And initially, it was just to put dots on a map.
Yes.
We were just putting dots on the map for Illinois. We weren't planning to do a story.
Because a lot of the locations nationally were known. So ProPublica had this map, and there were dots all around the country, and where on Illinois, it was unknown, 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 unknown. So we were aiming to make those places known, just like we were trying to do that around the country. It was just harder initially here.
So when you put the dots on the map, where were they?
Let's see if I remember what they all are. There's 2 in Rogers Park. There's 1 in Bronzeville. There's 1 in Beverly. There's 1 in Englewood. So not the neighborhoods you might expect, shelters that are full of mostly Latino kids and a lot of Southeast Asian kids in Illinois. And then there were 4 in Des Plaines, and those got shut down earlier this year. And and all of the ones I just mentioned are run by Heartland, which is one of the most beloved nonprofit do-gooder organizations in the state. And then separately, Maryville, which is part of the Catholic Church, they had a shelter in Bartlett, I think, and 1 in Des. They had 2 in Bartlett, 1 in Bartlett, 1 in Des Plaines, and now they're planning to open 1 more in Des Plaines, which they might have already opened, and they were going to open another one in Lakeview.
All right, everybody, if you're just joining us, the Ben Joravsky Show will be live at 1:30 today. What you're hearing now is last night's First Tuesday show with Ben Joravsky and Mick Dumke. It's every first Tuesday of the month at the Hideout, 1354 West Wabansia. And it's also, you can watch it on the Facebook page as well, but you want to check out the show live at 1354 West Wabansia at the Hideout. It's a fantastic time. Like I said, Ben's playing in pain today. You're going to find out more at 1:30. We're going to be doing the show at 1:30, so make sure you join us today on the program. Host of Humanity in the Headlines, Atiba Buchanan, and we welcome into our Sun Times studio. Oh, God, I got to clean up. The mortgage man, David Hochberg. We're going to talk mortgages, obviously. We haven't heard his thoughts on Mayor Lightfoot. We'll hear what he thinks about the mayor. We may talk Lincoln Yards, and obviously we're going to talk sports. Ben and David Hochberg love talking sports, but not too much sports. Non-sports fans, don't worry. We understand that this is a political show. We're going to be doing the news as well. So at 1:30, make sure you join us for a brand new Ben Joravsky show. All right, we're going to continue last night's First Tuesday show. Ben Joravsky, Mick Dumke, take it away.
So what can you tell us about how did you do it? How did you get the dots? You didn't open the phone. There are no phone books, but how did you find it out?
Okay, so ProPublica did what we like to call what we call a call out, which is reaching out to the public to get information. And ProPublica did a call out asking for people to respond with information. What did they know about where shelters were located or what was happening there? Were they an employee? Did they know a child there? So there was a big call out for information, and then there were some people who responded from Illinois. We followed up with them, and then we did public records searches that helped us locate some of the places, and then once we thought we had the addresses, we were able to file some Freedom of Information Act requests with the Chicago Police Department and the suburban police departments and DCFS, the fire marshal, anything we could to get information about those addresses. But until we had the addresses, we couldn't go deeper to get that information. So.
And when you got the addresses, what did you find?
Well, I think Jody and Dua, I wasn't on it in the first days of looking for where to put the dots on the map. They rented a car and drove to the addresses and saw children and talked to neighbors who thought that they might be schools or people had no idea what the buildings were next door. And it's worth saying that the buildings don't look, I mean, I don't know what's in your head when you think of a shelter, but the vast majority of them look like houses. They look like nice homes. There's one, the biggest one, how many kids? Like 300 kids?
It can hold like 200.
200?
About 200, 250 maybe?
The one in Bronzeville is in a big, like a senior living center, and the signs still say that that's what it is. But if you go in the back, there's a fence that you can kind of peek through and you can see all these kids, and it's right across the street from a school. And so people knew that there were children of some sort living there. I talked to a gardener across the street from the Beverly one, and he just thought it was like a Catholic church or something. But So I think initially that's what we were doing, was just confirming these are the addresses. And, we went back to Heartland and we're like, here's the addresses, we're going to put dots on a map. And they were horrified because the reason that the reason they keep the addresses secret is sort of the same logic that they use for domestic violence shelters. Like, you want to protect the women, you want to make sure that they're safe. And so they told us that the kids there a lot of them were fleeing persecution or violence or rape, and they were afraid that if the addresses got published, the kids would be hurt somehow. And then with all of the, the crazy reaction to our president and some of the statements he makes, there was some validity to, we were actually kind of worried and for a minute, maybe somebody will go in and do something to the kids in these places. So there was a lot of concerns about, do we publish these addresses or not? But ultimately, the more we learned, especially as the records from DCFS and the police came back, we realized that these are places that house children, some as young as a month or two old. And there isn't enough staffing. The kids are not don't always get the services that they probably should, that you would probably want for your own kids. There's been all sorts of problems at these places, so we thought it was valuable to publish the addresses so people could know what's happening in their own neighborhoods and with their tax dollars.
Before we get to the conditions in these shelters, you both have alluded to the concept of zero tolerance. Why don't you explain to people what zero tolerance means in this case?
So zero tolerance, that the government would have zero tolerance for people crossing over.
Our mics are ringing a little bit. Is there anything you can do about that? Thanks.
Under this policy that officially started last spring, so a year and a half ago, the government started separating parents from their children at the border when they'd come in, and there's been this. It's in the past, it's been a lot of young men who have come across the border, and more recently, there's been a lot of families from Central America who've been crossing, and so the Trump administration thought that by separating mothers from their kids, that might be a deterrent, and so people wouldn't come with their kids, because previously, if you came with your kid, then you were typically they took down the information about you and then let you go relatively fast, because the government isn't really equipped to detain families. So there's detention facilities for families, but there's not a lot of them. But under the Trump administration zero tolerance policy, they separated the kids from their parents. So they put the parents in adult jails and the kids to places like the Heartland shelters here in Illinois. And so that did create a lot of that created a lot of problems. But that policy officially started early in the spring, although unofficially it started months earlier. We actually found a kid from Brazil who had been brought in the summer of 2017, and as of just a few months ago, he was still at a shelter, who had been separated from his dad. But and then after Ginger released that audio, I think within days, the Trump administration officially stopped that policy, although unofficially it has continued to a lesser extent. But I think there's still been hundreds of separations the government has documented of parents and their kids.
And we wrote about it just recently again to update what was going on here. And there were, at that moment, there were 15 children who had recently been separated from their parents, even though zero tolerance is officially over. So it's
including
still,
babies.
Yeah, and there was a 2-month-old, someone, and very young.
And that's 15 in the Chicago area.
That's just in the Chicago area, but yeah, hundreds. There's been documented that there are hundreds of children who've been separated since zero tolerance ended officially last June.
So the tolerance is to tolerate any immigrants. Is that it? We're not going to tolerate any immigrants, even if they're a month old.
Well, it was that they weren't going to tolerate any families or parents. They were not going to tolerate parents coming over in ways that were not authorized. They were not going to have no tolerance.
So allowing a parent to live with his or her child would in some way be condoning the act of the parent coming illegally into the United States of America, and they weren't going to tolerate that in any way, and the way they were going to show they're not tolerating it is to lock the kid up.
So they were going to prosecute the parents, is what they were going to have no tolerance for it, so they were going to prosecute the parents, and by prosecuting the adults, the children had to go somewhere, and the children therefore were going to children-only facilities.
And this language is really complicated, and I've stumbled a lot kind of in how I've described some of this in the past. But we have to remember that these, aren't necessarily people crossing over illegally. Like, I don't even know what that means. But a lot of these families are the reason that they're coming with their kids, the reason that they're coming is because they're trying to get asylum. And so, asylum seekers, we don't typically think of them as crossing illegally, but they're trying to come to a different country for protection. So a lot of the people who are coming, including a lot of the kids at the shelters here in Chicago, because we've seen their records, are coming because they have been raped wherever they're from. There's a lot of kids from Central America, a lot of Guatemalan kids. There's a huge gang problem. Some of these countries are very unsafe. We spoke with a woman whose niece was in a shelter in the Bronzeville one for a few months, whose neighbor's daughter had been raped with a broomstick, and so the mother was afraid that the same thing would happen to her own kid, who was like 7 or 8, and so that's what they told us was the reason for why they came. And so they're trying to flee like crazy gang violence in their home countries, and they're trying to seek asylum. Asylum is not an option as much as it used to be, and so yeah, crossing illegally, it's semantics.
But they're important semantics, and I appreciate you spelling it out. In a little contrast, how would these people who have just come to the United States been treated during the Obama days?
So the same thing was happening under Obama, and I want to make sure that's super clear to everybody. Trump says a lot of crazy things, and he makes a lot of us mad. But Obama was known in the immigrant rights community as the deporter in chief, because he deported more people than Trump has. He deported more people than any president previously. There was a similar crisis at the border. I forget when was that, 2010, with families and kids. But Trump has taken it to another level, the separation. There were separations previously, not quite to the level as we're seeing with Trump, and definitely not as much gloating about it as we saw in Obama's time.
All right, everybody, we're about 10 minutes away from a brand new live Ben Joravsky Show. How's it going, everybody? I'm producer Dennis. As I said, Ben's playing in pain today, and we're going to give the big reveal here for Ben. Ben, you're the man, by the way. I just want to say hats off to you. I would go anywhere if I looked the way you look here. All right, here we go. The big reveal. Ben Joravsky playing in pain. Say hello to everybody.
Hello to everybody.
Oh, my goodness, man.
Playing in pain, folks.
You're
playing in pain.
Explain to everybody what's going on here, if you could, please.
I had a little procedure this morning, and I didn't think it was going to be that big a deal, but was I wrong?
You rode your bike to the thing.
Man, when that doctor took out the axe, I knew I was in trouble. So we'll tell you more about it in a little while. Slice off a little more.
Same old Ben. But guys, hey, 1:30, all right? Ben's still warming up. He's got show prep to do, okay? We're going to continue. Oh, Pat Rod put on there, good God. And then Steven weighed in. Oh, geez. Pat Rod, LOL.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Pat Rod. Appreciate it.
No, thank you, Ben, for coming in, man. You're one of a kind, Ben Joravsky. Let's give everybody one more look there. There he is, everybody. All right, we got this today, people. No worries. Ben Joravsky Show coming up live. Our guests are Atiba Buchanan, host of Humanity in the Headlines, and we welcome the Mortgage Man into our Sun Time studio. David Hochberg. We're going to be talking mortgages, ask him what he thinks about Mayor Lightfoot. I'm sure I'll interrupt them talking about sports too much. It'll be a fantastic time. We're going to do the news at 1:30. Ben will tell you what's on his mind. Besides,
and what's on his face.
Yeah, and what's on his face. Don't go anywhere. We're going to keep this going here. What we're airing, by the way, is last night's First Tuesday show from The Hideout. Go check it out if you want to. We're not going to play all of it. If you want to hear the rest of it, go to the Ben Joravsky Show Facebook page or the Hideout Facebook page, Hideout INN, or the Ben Joravsky Show Facebook page at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show. All right, let's get back to it. At 1:30, we will be here with a brand new program. Ben, you are the man.
I mean, hasn't separation been a policy that's been pursued? It's been presented as a disincentive. I mean, aren't we hearing that Stephen Miller, the architect of a lot of Everybody likes him here. Very popular. The architect of a lot of the Trump administration's policies, that supposedly this was one of his ideas or one of the things he pushed, that this will, if people are coming here seeking asylum, families, these caravans, whatever, that this is one more disincentive.
For sure. But we should note that this was happening, it has been happening in different ways for years. One of the problems is, like, a lot of families in Latin America, the parents might actually live here in the U.S. and the kids live back home. And so when they cross over, they might be crossing over with their aunt or their uncle or some other relative or friend. And those children have for decades been separated from that adult who might not be a nuclear family, but there has been separations. But under Trump, there has been a very explicit policy, and that was not the case in the past.
Can you talk a little bit about dealing with Heartland? As you said, Melissa, you described them as a do-gooder organization. I know when I was reporting on immigration a little bit at the Sun-Times, they were a source of ours. They connected us with people who were caught in the bizarro world of our immigration system. And certainly the public perception has been one that they have been advocates for years for immigrants and other groups. What was it like dealing with them, and what can you say about about them and the shelters?
What can I say? So I think you're right. Heartland in the past was not a target, so to speak, of an investigation. I think they were not used to being in that role, or in that position, I should say. So they did answer, they did talk with us, they did answer questions. There's some things they, would say they can't answer because of privacy, which didn't necessarily make sense to me. Like, we wanted to just confirm at one point that a bunch of children had run away from one of their facilities, and they refused to even address any questions about it. And I'm not sure that they were protecting anyone's privacy by doing that. So they answered some questions. They, did not answer others.
And a lot of people who work in immigration activism, or who do that as a side thing, have gone through Heartland at some point in their life. A lot of the people in my personal network have either know somebody or have once worked at a Heartland shelter, and they do work for the homeless and for they do healthcare.
You're talking about the Heartland Alliance, not the Heartland Institute.
The Heartland Alliance.
Yeah.
The Heartland Alliance.
Heartland Institute is like a right-wing, libertarian thing.
Yeah, so the Heartland Alliance
they have all these other divisions.
Yeah, they have 7 or 8 or 10 subsidiaries. One of them is a National Immigrant Justice Center, which does the work that you talk about with they are constantly putting out press releases, and there's great stories being written about all the good work they're doing to help refugees, and they've taken political stances against the Trump administration and all of this. So it was really delicate to deal with them, because they kind of are the good guys, but at the same time, as we started interviewing people who work in these places, they signed up to work there because they wanted to be the good guys. They wanted to work with kids. They wanted to help immigrant kids. That's what every single person we talked to told us, that they took a job there that pays crap in order to help immigrant children, because they're they're liberals. and without fail, every single one told us that they ended up feeling like a prison guard. That they did not think they were going to go to a place and guard children from running away. And so there was a lot of internal conflict within the staff, the former staff, and that was kind of the same thing as an institution. There was an internal reckoning, what are we doing? We're doing this because we're not the GEO group. We're not a for-profit shitty prison company that that's trying to save money and cut corners. We're doing this because we want to offer a more humanitarian version of care. It's shelters, it's not detention, right? But at the end of the day, you're dealing with kids who are adolescents, who are almost 18, who came to this country probably to work or whatever, and they have plans, then they're stuck in this place, they can't leave. If they run away, they're arrested by police. So they feel like they're in a jail, especially if they're there for months or years. So it was really complicated.
How many children are we talking about?
So right now there are about 400
in Illinois.
in the Chicago area. In Heartland.
Chicago
There were
area.
375 last month, I want to say, in Heartland, and then another 50 or 60 that were part of Maryville.
And did you actually get into the buildings themselves?
Oh, no way.
Yeah, no way. That's
No,
right.
but
Yeah.
you know, we, like Melissa said, we would go outside and you could see children in the windows, and they would they were waving, and yeah. One thing was with the Bronzeville one, the really big one, that there's a like shoe store on the corner there, and in the back there's like a garden in the back of the shoe store, and sometimes when the kids on the field they're playing volleyball or soccer, the ball would go over into the shoe store's backyard, and they would throw it back, and the people who owned the shoe store had no idea who the children were. They thought it was like a group home or something. But
So if officially the policy of zero tolerance was abolished after ProPublica came out with its stories and they had the tape. We're talking about 2018. Am I on the calendar right?
Like the summer of 2018.
20, yeah, it's all coming together. So if officially the policy of zero tolerance has been abandoned, what is our government's official policy toward minors who are in this country, quote unquote, illegally, and then are caught?
So kids are not adults, so they're not supposed to be put in adult facilities. That's why the shelter system exists. That dates back to, I think, the 80s. There was a big case. It's known as the Flores case. And I think it was like some Salvadoran girls who were in a crappy situation with adults. So they, so the big difference is like the federal. There's a lot of branches. There's a lot of pieces to the federal government. Homeland Security runs ICE, and like Customs and Border Patrol, which have protection, which has like the really, really terrible facilities down by the border. And so kids are not supposed to be sent there. They're not supposed to be there for longer than 72 hours in adult facilities. That's recently changed, but like 2 weeks ago. But so kids are sent to facilities that are administered by the Department of Health and Human Services under the Office of Refugee Resettlement, and it's mostly nonprofits. I think it's mostly nonprofits that run these facilities all over the country. But nonprofit, it's like a weird term because it makes you think that it's like they're doing good, but at the same time, sometimes the CEOs are making like $800,000 a year. I'm not referring to Heartland here, but like Southwest Keys and other organizations. So the kids are supposed to get an education while they're there. That doesn't really happen. I've talked to a number of the teachers at these places that say it's really impossible to educate kids who are coming in. A lot of you are probably teachers.
Okay, everybody. To hear the rest of Mick Dumke and Ben Joravsky's First Tuesday show last night at the Hideout, head over to either the Ben Joravsky Show Facebook page, BENNY, the letter J Show, JORAV as in Victory SKY, or you can check it out on the Hideout's Facebook page. It's Hideout INN. Okay, your Ben Joravsky Show for Wednesday, September 4th. By the way, this show may go down as one of the craziest shows we will ever have. Oh, my goodness. You'll find out why in just moments if you're just now joining us on Facebook. But your Ben Joravsky Show for Wednesday, September 4th is brought to you in part by unions. Quite a few of them, in fact, like the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Big thank you to those unions for jumping on board and bringing back our program. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. And let me make sure we are recording here. Like I said, today's show is going to be very, very interesting. Our host is playing in pain today, all right? Mad props to Ben Joravsky. Let's do the reveal before we start the show. All right, Ben. Our host, Ben Joravsky, went to the doctor today, rode his bike, wasn't expecting much. There he is. Say hi to everybody, Ben.
Hi to everybody, Ben.
All right, your Ben Joravsky Show starts now. Wasn't ready. Hold on. There we go. We're ready. It is Wednesday, September 4th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, Ben Joravsky's playing in pain, baby!
Yeah.
We welcome back host of Humanity in the Headlines, Atiba Buchanan, and we welcome to our Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio, the mortgage man, David Hochberg. And now your host, not a mortgage man, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. Yes, indeed. As Dennis said, we're calling this Playing in Pain Wednesday. Isn't that the day it is today?
Yes. All right, buddy.
And here's why. All right, everybody. So I got up nice and early today because you know what? I knew I had to go to the doctor. We talked about this about 2 weeks ago because I went to the doctor the first time to get this thing diagnosed. They had discovered some basal cell growth on my nose. That's a form of cancer that's non-lethal. So that's the good news, all right? So I figured,
that's great news.
Yeah, that is great news. And so they say, well, they come in, they'll take it off. I figure I'd be in and out. No big deal. Because the last time when they did the little test, I was in and out. I had a delicious breakfast, as I recall, at the restaurant next door. So anyway, I rode my bike in there, and I go into the doctor's office, the room, the patient room, whatever it is, the procedural room. The doctor walks in, sees my bike helmet, and goes, "You didn't ride your bike, did you?" And I said, "Yeah, I rode my bike." And the doctor said, "Well, that's the stupidest thing you could have done." No, the doctor was way too nice to say that, but she just said, "You're not going to be able to ride your bike home." I said, "I thought this was in and out easy." And sure enough, man, next thing you know, they took out this needle. It was about this long. Just put it in my nose. I'd say this was on my nose. Yeah, it's on my nose. They put that in my nose. Oh, wow, I feel really good from the painkiller in that thing. Do you need a little more painkiller? Yeah, I think I'll have a little more painkiller. Put that thing in there. Then they took out this I don't know, it was like a knife or something. And they started whacking things off. And then,
that had been a better way to say that.
So then they said, "All right, here to show it to you." And there was like this big hole in my nose. I'm like, good God. So they said, "All right, now we're going to have to stitch it up." So, they took out a needle and a little thread or whatever it was. It wasn't thread, it was stitches. And I think they brought out a Singer sewing machine. And at some point, I felt like this liquid stuff coming down my face. That was blood.
Oh, my God, dude.
I'm like, God, I thought this was some in and out. You're doing really well. They always tell you, how you doing there? Oh, good.
And just so everybody knows, I told Ben, "Hey, dude, if you don't want to do the show, we don't have to, all right? I'm not like, come on, Ben, get your ass in here."
So then I called Dennis. I go, "Dennis, I don't know if I could do the show." And he said, "Boy, if you don't come in here, I'm going to smack you upside your head." "Yes, sir."
I did not say that.
Then I got a problem. What do I do with my bike? That's a whole other issue.
I will be riding Ben's bike home this evening.
Anyway, so then the doc says, "Okay, we'll put some bandages on." Well, they didn't tell me they're going to make me look like the Invisible Man. You know, they put so many bandages on. And now I'm wearing these shades because I got black eyes. When they do this to you, it's got black eyes.
Wait, where'd you go? Oh, there you are.
Yeah. So, I get it. Subtle, Invisible Man. Yeah. Or as some of our older listeners would know, I look like Jack Nicholson in Chinatown. Jack Nicholson goes through Chinatown for most of the Chinatown with this thing on his nose, but our younger listeners are like, "Huh? Who? What?" Great movie, by the way. I urge everyone to
as
see
he was telling our guest, he told the older guest that he looks like Jack Nicholson. And then he called a younger guest and told the younger guest that he looks the Invisible Man.
Yeah,
just to make sure that our guests are aware.
Yeah, I'm trying, even woozy like I am. So then they gave me some drugs. I don't know what it is. And that's like, whoa, I'm just, that's feeling no pain moment here. And I was like, maybe I won't do the show. But then I was reading about how the Bears unveiled a statue, the great Walter Payton. I'm a huge Bears fan. I don't really talk about the Bears as much as I talk about the Bulls, and Dennis doesn't let me talk about either one, although we got Hochberg coming in at 2:30. Maybe sneak some sports talking with my good friend David Hochberg. But anyway, so I'm like, I'm reading about the great Walter Payton, and for you younger listeners out there, Walter Payton is the greatest running back who ever played the game. He was fearless. He wasn't that tall or big, but he was so strong. He played with such heart. He never played hurt. I mean, he never took a day off, played in pain. He played with sickness. I remember 1977, he rushed for like 290 yards against the Minnesota Vikings with a fever. And I'm like, you know what? In honor of Sweetness, I'm going in today because Sweetness wouldn't take the day off. You hear that, D? Walter Payton would play in pain, so I'm going to go in there. All right?
You guys' jobs are pretty different, but...
Nobody's trying to tackle me.
It's like colliding with humans. But,
Oh, my God.
I like where your head's at.
Anyway, but the other thing the lady said, that the doctor said, oh, by the way, you're going to have to wear this Band-Aid till Friday. So I got this thing on tomorrow. I'm walking around. It's kind of funny when you walk around with something like this, D, because people don't really know what to say to you. So they kind of...
Yeah.
A lot of people don't say anything to you.
If they don't know you, they definitely don't know what to say.
Yeah, and so some people like well, I'm just not going to comment on the
But isn't that funny?
obvious.
People who actually know you can go, what the hell?
What happened to your nose? Anyway, man, so I popped these pills. I'm feeling a little woozy right now. Dennis asked me right before the show, are you ready? And I go, well, we'll see. And I guess that kind of sums it up, folks. We'll see what will emerge from the fog. But we have some great guests, as Dennis said. Atiba Buchanan, good friend of the show. We're talking Trump, national politics. And David Hochberg, the mortgage man. He'll be coming in here in about an hour or so. We'll be talking mortgages, politics, development. The guy knows a lot about development in the city of Chicago. And maybe talk about the great Walter Payton a little bit with him. A lot of political talk ahead of us. But first, the doctor with the news.
How's it going, everybody? I am not a doctor, like that last story he was telling. Not a doctor. That lady's a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Before we get going into the news, Ben, I got it zoomed out so no one can see it, but just to give everybody a good look. There it is. Ben, what a trooper, dude. Dude, I got mad respect for you for coming in today, man.
You know,
That's
the worst
awesome.
part's when the painkillers wear off.
Oh my God! I hope I'm long gone away from you when that happens.
Yeah. Tomorrow, by the way, I still have this. Tomorrow, I will still have this. 2 days of this. Whatever.
Let's go, buddy. I'm into it. All right, here we go. Let's unpack the Chicago and/or Illinois news happening this afternoon. We begin with the governor's Wednesday plans. No public events scheduled for Governor Jb Pritzker. And that's because our Illinois governor, Jb Pritzker, is on crutches. Ben, he broke his femur.
He's playing in pain, too.
Oh, my goodness. But if any of you out there believe that being hurt is going to slow down the hardest working governor in America, well, you are sorely mistaken. See what I did there? Sorely?
Yeah, that's good. I like
Pretty good.
Yeah.
At least that's what his administration says. Ben, you'll appreciate this. According to the Chicago Sun-Times, while injured, Pritzker has been spending a lot of time talking on the phone. Ben, you love talking on the phone.
I do.
I hear you complain every day. Oh, man, no one talks on the phone anymore.
Yeah,
Text, email, man. You care to share with our audience this afternoon about you hating modern-day communication?
Well, it's let me put it to you this way. After a while, just texting just becomes so burdensome. You know, like you can't just do it like one little text, then it's 2, and then it's 3, then it's 4. And the millennials are really quick on it. I'm slow. Forget that. I'm just going to call the person on the phone. Then they don't answer the phone. I go, I know you're there. You've been texting me, but now you're not answering the phone. Millennials don't like to answer the phone. So I'm with Pritzker on that. Pritzker, by the way, is a baby boomer. He's a little younger than me, but he's up there. So he doesn't want to text. Get on that phone. Direct communication. You know, D, because you hear me every day before the show. I call the guests. And sometimes the guest's like, oh, no, I'm going to talk to you in the studio in an hour.
You'll call the guest, the voicemail belonging to... Oh man, no one answers their phone, dude.
Yeah. So anyway, no, I'm a talk to the guy on the phone kind of guy.
The Sun-Times article continues. Pritzker's hobbling around on crutches after breaking his femur. Boy, I'd like to see a picture of Jb Pritzker right now and Ben Joravsky just side by side. Oh, they've seen better days. Pritzker's hobbling around on crutches after breaking his femur, and he's spending a lot of time on the phone, including with Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Now remember, everyone, last week, Lightfoot put a lot of political pressure on the governor in her speech about the city's finances. Now, in this story, we have two quotes, all right? Mayor Lightfoot's spokeswoman, the other, Governor Pritzker's spokeswoman. First up, Lori Lightfoot and spokeswoman Anel Ruiz. And that says the mayor's office said Governor Pritzker and Mayor Lightfoot shared a, quote, productive discussion late last week about ways to work together to address the shared challenges and opportunities facing our state and Chicago's communities. All right, we'll take it. I mean, no details at all, really, but hey, I will take a productive discussion about ways to work together over an unproductive, combative discussion any day. You know what I mean, Ben? Mm-hmm. Now to Governor Pritzker spokeswoman Emily Bittner. Bittner said that the governor and the mayor, quote, have productive conversations regularly. And they spoke again late last week. And as the mayor works to build support for her ideas among legislative leaders and rank-and-file lawmakers, the governor expects that they will continue to have productive conversations. All right? Also not bad. A little more wordy statement saying the same thing, but once again, no exact details on what was discussed. But we have learned that the two have regular discussions. Ben Joravsky, in your humble opinion, have the Illinois governor and Chicago mayor been acting as a cohesive unit like these statements claim? Or are these spokespeople full of crap?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say the latter, but Lori Lightfoot needs things from Jb Pritzker that he might not be able to deliver at this moment. Number one, she wants a change in the pension law so that she can, in the casino law, so she could woo a casino to the city of Chicago, and it's not clear if Pritzker can deliver on that. She hinted in her budget speech, or was it her State of the City speech, that she might want some changes in the pension laws or some assistance from the state in paying the pension bills that Chicago has and paying their obligations. I don't think he is going to deliver on that. Then there's the transfer tax on the sale of real estate for upscale real estate, and she needs a state a law to pass in downstate in the General Assembly for that. I think he could probably get that through, although that may be a little tough in the veto session. So there's things she needs from him that I'm not sure he can deliver at the moment. And it's going to put her in a very awkward situation as we head into this budget season, D, because she's going to be counting on money from the state or to pay off the bills. And, well, listen, when it comes to budgets, even if the money is not coming in, they count it anyway, and then they just deal with the reality that the money didn't arrive about 6 months down the road when they say, oops, those projections we made of money coming from the state didn't come true, so now our deficit is even higher than we thought. So I guess they could play that game. Here's the interesting thing about Lori and Pritzker, and I just came home yesterday when we had Carlos Ramirez Rosa in the studio. Fifth Ward, as you know, D. Hey, how about that? Those painkillers haven't dulled my ability to know what ward he is, what ward he's from. But Carlos was in here, and he is a self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist. He is of the leftist persuasion, progressive persuasion, and he did not endorse Lori Lightfoot in the mayoral race. He was a supporter of Tony Preckwinkle. He was very measured, I thought, in his statements. Carlos was. He didn't make any personal attacks on Lori, and spoke very well of her. And even though they have sort of these policy differences, but the thing he said that was interesting, D, he was showering praise on Pritzker. And Brandon Johnson did the same thing. Cook County Board Commissioner Brandon Johnson did the same thing. So, you know, Pritzker is being held up by all the progressives in Chicago as the model they want Lori Lightfoot to follow. It's very interesting that I know none of these progressives endorsed Pritzker in the primary back in 2018, and they certainly didn't endorse your guy, Bob Diber. But now they're singing his praise. So I may probably irritate Lori a little bit if I know Lori Lightfoot. You know, they all say great things about Pritzker, but they don't say anything nice about her. It's kind of like a passive-aggressive way, if you will, of letting people know that they're not entirely pleased with Lori Lightfoot.
Oh, Jb Pritzker would like to weigh in.
I'm not a perfect person.
No, but he's been a good governor. You know what? I'm going to give praise where praise is due. He's off to a pretty good start, in my humble opinion. I agree with Carlos and Brandon on that one.
All right, more statewide news to discuss. We have an Illinois Reefer update. Ooh. Remember, starting in January.
Boy, I could smoke some Reefer right now.
Okay, let's focus here, pal.
You got any edibles?
My God, no. You got those ibuprofens?
They don't quite do the trick.
We have an Illinois Reefer update. No, Ben's not smoking any right now. Remember, starting in January, recreational marijuana will be legal in Illinois. And now is the time for our Illinois towns, cities, and counties to decide what on earth they're going to do about all this reefer madness. I have a few updates on some cities in Illinois and their recent conclusions on cannabis. First up, we travel to the downstate 618 area code in Edwardsville, Illinois, a city where a young producer Dennis attended college and dropped out like after a year. It was really hard.
Yeah, I remember you were good at one college, but not the other one, as I recall.
Really
right?
good at radio school in community college. Then actual college came. It was like, holy crap, this is hard.
Yeah, Edwardsville's no joke.
I think I quit, guys. In a split vote, 3-3, the city council in Edwardsville, Illinois, failed to pass an ordinance Tuesday to prohibit the sale of recreational cannabis within city limits. Edwardsville's next steps will be to amend the city's tax code to permit these sales and start working on zoning regulations to define where within city limits such shops will be allowed.
Wait, I don't understand. So it was a split vote not to immediately legalize, so they have to go through these other procedures before they can go back and have another vote? Is that correct?
I believe so here.
All right.
It says here that split vote 3-3, city council in Edwardsville failed to pass an ordinance to prohibit the sale of recreational cannabis.
Oh, to prohibit the sale. I get you. To prohibit the sale so that they can move ahead. Oh, man. So I can just imagine what went down in that vote, folks. If politicians in Edwardsville are the same as politicians elsewhere, they were wheeling and dealing behind the scenes. Okay, I can't vote yes on this thing because it'll make me look like a hippie or something in my, Trump district. So here's what I want. I'll vote no, but you vote yes, and we'll balance each other out. That kind of thing was probably going on because 3-3, the vote was to prohibit. So they move forward by rejecting the prohibition. Listen, folks, I've been saying this forever and ever. This notion that somehow or other Republicans don't like marijuana is a big joke. That downstaters don't like marijuana is a big joke. But they have to cling to this myth. They've like gone this far with it, so they just got to go a little further with it. So Edwardsville wants the money, just like every other community wants the money that you get from selling reefer. So they had to go with this little charade of the 3-3 vote on the prohibition. That's politics, Edwardsville style.
Republicans don't smoke marijuana. They never met my Uncle Bill.
No, man. They smoke it. They just pretend they don't smoke it.
From Edwardsville to Woodstock, Illinois. Ben, tell us your memories of Woodstock, Illinois. Have you been?
I think I was in Woodstock once. I think there's like a pumpkin festival or something in Woodstock. I remember pumpkins. Something about pumpkins.
He remembers pumpkins, guys.
And I do know that Woodstock is the home of Orson Welles, the great movie maker, Citizen Kane. I think Orson Welles was born in Woodstock. And speaking of marijuana, Woodstock is up in New York where they had the big festival. How about that, D?
Oh, yeah.
So
Woodstock.
Woodstock.
You were like 40 during the original Woodstock, right?
Yeah, no, I think it was 48. By the time I got to Woodstock, I was feeling pretty good.
He's really old, guys. From Edwardsville to Woodstock, the Woodstock City Council approved an ordinance on Tuesday establishing a 3% tax on the gross sales receipts of recreational marijuana retailers. The council voted 5-1 in favor of the proposal, with council member David Flynn voting against it. You want to hear the quote from Flynn?
Yeah, let's hear what Flynn has to say. I want to see why he voted no. Go ahead.
All right, here's the quote from Flynn. It's a new industry, and it's a new business, and we have to show that we are open for business.
Wait, I thought the vote was the medication has really been kicking in. Was the vote 5-1 to approve or 5-1 to reject?
The Woodstock City Council approved an ordinance on Tuesday establishing a 3% tax on the gross sales receipts of recreational marijuana.
So they're going to tax it. All right. And so why is he objecting to that? I don't get it. I don't know, Flynn. I don't get what Flynn's talking about. Maybe it's the pain pills I've been taking. It doesn't make any sense. It's a new business. What did he say?
It's a new business, and we have to show that we are open for business.
Oh, so is he saying that the tax is too high? I don't know. Damn, that would be wild. The whole point of legalizing is to tax it. At least, in the minds of, I think they should have just legalized it because it's so hypocritical to have it illegal. But if you're going to have it legal, you might as well tax it. So anyway.
All right, moving on to St. Charles.
Oh, St. Charles.
Illinois.
Now, I know a little bit about St. Charles, D.
Oh, really?
St. Charles, Illinois, is where the juvenile detention. I don't know if they still is there, but when I was a kid, 442 years ago, there was the juvenile detention. So if you were bad, you would go to St. Charles. But we always talk about, you better better act straight, or we're going to send you to St. Charles. In fact, they made a movie set in St. Charles with Sean Penn. I believe it's called Bad Boys. I'm not making this up. It could be the pills kicking in. But there was a movie, I think, in like late 70s, early 80s with Sean Penn. He played a tough. They sent him to St. Charles. So anyway, that's all I know about St. Charles.
Holy cow. St. Charles. The Government Operations Committee in St. Charles voted 5-3 Monday to implement a 3% municipal cannabis retailer's occupation tax starting next year. That would tack on to an existing 2% local sales tax, meaning St. Charles will collect 5% of gross recreational marijuana sales pending city council approval. Under the current law, the city can implement a local tax of up to 3% beginning September 1st, 2020.
Yeah. See, that's what I was saying. They slapped that additional tax on to make more money for the town. If you're going to legalize marijuana, if you're going to sell marijuana, they're going to tax you for it. They're going to make some money off of it. I think old boy in Woodstock was complaining that the tax was too high. Anyway, so that's an interesting take on the marijuana tax. But yeah, hey, that's why they legalized it, D. They want the money. All right, so they're going to get the money.
On to Urbana, Illinois. Ben, what do you think of Urbana? Any memories, any thoughts?
I have. That's the one town I have been. I was in Champaign-Urbana. That's, of course, Champaign-Urbana. I visited University of Illinois. I saw Bruce Springsteen play down there once.
Ooh,
how about that?
right.
He's one of your favorites.
No, he's not.
And Carol Ammons, the great Carol Ammons, State Representative Carol Ammons is from Champaign-Urbana. It's a pretty cool town, pretty liberal town. Isn't Roger Ebert the greatest film critic of all times?
Frank, where are you?
Yeah, Chicago Sun-Times superstar Roger Ebert. May he rest in peace, the great Roger Ebert. One of the greatest journalists, I think, in the history of Chicago. I believe he's from Urbana, but don't quote me.
Urbana, Illinois. Anyone who buys cannabis for recreational purposes in Urbana when it becomes legal January 1st can add another 3%
they're
tax
adding that money on, yep,
to the total bill.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Grandpa Naperville.
Naperville. All right, here you go, D, for 10 trivia points. Which recently elected congressman is from Naperville?
Ice Cube.
I kind of tricked you by saying Congresswoman. It should be Congresswoman Lauren Underwood.
Oh, I was going to say that, and then you said man, and then
I kind of was playing with you. If I said Congresswoman, it would have been a dead giveaway, all right?
Even on medication, he's a tricky man.
I should have said Congressperson.
Naperville City Council members voted late Tuesday night to prohibit sales of recreational marijuana, but also expressed support for a plan to let voters revisit the topic with a future ballot question.
Okay,
slow down, time.
Naperville. That's called a duck and a dodge, D.
Council members voted 6-3 to ban all types of recreational marijuana businesses and to ask staff members to develop the language of a referendum question, which they can consider putting on a later ballot. 3C, Compassionate Care Center, a medical marijuana dispensary on Quincy Avenue, will be allowed to continue its medical operation, but is not permitted to sell the drug for recreational use at its Naperville shop or any other site in town.
All right, so they're going to put it on the ballot. That should drive up voter turnout, right? Don't you think? People turn off that. Yeah, it's a bit of a duck and a dodge. But then again, maybe it's democracy speaking. How about that? I guess Naperville, I'm going to look on the glass half full, half empty. Naperville is showing Chicago, how you do a referendum. Where's Pat Quinn when you need him? Or get out the clipboard and get the. Well, actually, they could probably put it right on the ballot so he doesn't collect signatures. But as you know, in the city of Chicago, we have an issue with voter referendums. The past mayors, Daley and Rahm, just didn't like them and wanted to suppress them because he was trying to shove down our throats policies that we didn't want. Like he wanted a mayoral appointed school board, and the people in the city of Chicago want an elected school board. And of course, I still haven't quite got over this one, D. I don't think I ever will. Pat Quinn Quinn collected thousands and thousands of signatures to get a referendum on the ballot.
You're telling me Pat Quinn collected thousands and thousands of signatures?
Yes, he did.
Shocking.
Pat Quinn did indeed gather those signatures and to get on the ballot a referendum asking voters in the city of Chicago whether they wanted to limit the mayor to 2 terms in office. There was a vote. Mayor Rahm had his lawyers fight that referendum, fight Quinn's ability to get it on the ballot. That matter is still under litigation, and so in the meantime, they're suppressing the results. They won't tell us what the results were. So for all I know, and I'll bet you have money, laid down a bet in Vegas, the people in the city of Chicago voted to slap a 2-term limit on their mayor. But because of Rahm, one more parting gift from Rahm and his litigation, that we don't even know what the results were. So Naperville is trying to show the city of Chicago, I guess, how democracy should work. So if you want, if Napervillians, is that what they're called, D? Napervillians?
Sure.
Atiba Buchanan, our next guest, is from that neck of the woods. Maybe
you got to put Villians. If you say Napervillans, it sounds like
Napervillians. You try saying that with all the painkillers I've had. Anyway, Napervillians will get to vote and decide for themselves. So I'm looking at the glass as half full, D.
There we go. That'll last for about 5 minutes. Okay, so if you just tuned in, by the way, if you're joining us live, Ben went to the doctor today, and he's playing in pain, all right? Yeah. That's the real Ben Joravsky, not someone in disguise, all right? He's a champ, and he came in today, and we think he's awesome for it. All right, it's time to check in with Frank Gate. Frank has weighed in here. Well, maybe it is the medication, Ben. Orson Welles was born in Kenosha, Wisconsin, not Illinois.
I think he was born in Woodstock, Illinois. But you know what, Frank? I always bow to your wisdom. Frank, by the way, was at the Hideout last night, as was Mark Sims. I took a picture of them together. So anyway, Frank, I always bow to your wisdom, but I'm going to double check that. Even though I'm bowing to your wisdom at the moment.
Wisdom, but not really.
Yeah, no, you know, what did Reagan always say? Trust but verify. So that's what I'm going to do.
And you got this one right. Roger Ebert is, in fact, from Urbana.
Okay, I thought that. Okay, I got 1 out of 2. 1 out of 2 ain't bad.
Oh, please stop singing.
I think it's 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Anyway.
Yeah, it's not that at all. All right, Atiba Buchanan has joined us. We're going to be going with him in moments, but I think this is an excellent way to segue into the national news here. Let's talk about Mayor Lightfoot and her schedule. First off, Mayor Lightfoot is giving a visit to Navy Pier to congratulate new and promoted CPD officers at their morning graduation ceremony. Then an afternoon trip to Douglas Park to give remarks at the Huddle for 100 NFL neighborhood event. Ready, set, 2020! And tonight, she'll attend the budget town hall meeting at the Copernicus Center. Anything you'd like to say there, Ben?
I would be going there, except I think as soon as this show is over, I'm going to go to bed. The Copernicus Center in Lawrence Avenue, just east of Milwaukee. And there should be a pretty good crowd on hands there for her. The first budget. I would have loved to have been there tonight, but I think I'm going to take the night off.
Yeah, I'd say you do that too. All right, it was Tuesday's top story locally. The time Mayor Lightfoot, Twitter kicked the hell out of Texas Senator Ted Cruz when bringing up Chicago in his gun control rant on Twitter. Lightfoot called Ted Cruz a coward and to, quote, keep our name out of your mouth. Ted Cruz eventually got up off the ground, dusted himself off, and responded, yes, on Twitter, saying, and I think the way to do the Ted Cruz impression is to hold your nose. Ben, please do not try it.
Okay,
I'll take care of the Ted Cruz impression for today. Mayor, your anger is misplaced. It's kind of Ted Cruz-y, right?
Yeah.
He then linked a USA Today story showing that Chicago had the most homicides among U.S. cities last year. He continued,
well, maybe rather than getting angry when others point out that tragically high murder rate in Chicago, you put aside the partisan talking points and the failed gun control policy Chicago has pursued for decades.
Oh, boy. I gotta, we're going to take a deeper dive in this when Atiba comes. I'd love to hear what he has to say about this, but I'd talk about partisan talking point. This whole thing is a partisan talking point that's engineered by the Republicans. Now they're accusing Lori of doing that.
And just when you thought the squabble was squashed, Mayor Lightfoot spoke with the Chicago Tribune and one Gregory Pratt about the matter. Ben, please hold your thoughts on Gregory Pratt. We have to keep going here with the news. Here's the quote from Lightfoot, quote, Given the tragedy that's happened in Texas over the last few weeks, tragedies plural, it's surprising to me that Senator Cruz would do anything other than work his butt off to better represent the citizens of Texas.
I agree 100% with Lori Lightfoot in that one.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add there, Ben?
Nothing other than the fact that I'm looking forward to the conversation with Atiba Buchanan. I'm going to ask him what he thinks about Ted Cruz. I'm sure he has some interesting things to say about that.
All right, everybody. So there you are. That's what's going on locally. Ben, how you feeling? You feeling good?
It's kicking in, man. It's kicking in.
You still want to continue, right?
Oh, yeah. Come on now. I'm Walter Payton. I'm Sweetness.
Oh, yeah. He's Sweetness. All right. Well, good. We want to continue as well. All right. And hey, do you feel that in the air?
I think it's a little Walter Payton-esque.
Yes, it is Walter Payton-esque. It's almost football season. We're days away from football season, which means that the best sports reporters in Chicago want to offer you, yes, you, the Ben Joravsky Show listener, an exclusive deal on unlimited digital access to all of the stories that you love. Don't miss a game this season. Get all the big play scores and stories from the Chicago Sun-Times. For a limited time only, you, yes, you, the listener, can lock in our lowest rate yet. Only $29.99 for a full year of all the news and sports that you need to know. Stay up to date on breaking stories, get the deep dives and investigations from Sun-Times reporters, and go deep inside City Hall with the best-in-class political reporting. And, of course, cheer for the big games with the best sports team in the city. $29.99 for a full year of unlimited access. You cannot do better than that. Take advantage of this exclusive deal now at suntimes.com/Ben. People, do not go anywhere, because coming up after this short little break, Atiba Buchanan is here, and we're going to talk Trump, and more Trump. It's the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times. Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. Chicagoland Cremation Options.com. One more time. Chicagoland.cremationoptions.com.
Commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Atiba Buchanan in the studio with us, a frequent guest on the Ben Joravsky Show. Atiba, welcome back.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for having me. And it's good to see you because I just saw you 2 days ago.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to say, I was looking a little differently 2 days ago, wasn't I, Atiba?
You were. I don't know what happened, but go ahead.
All right, so I'll just do the setup. Atiba Buchanan has been on my show. I don't know how many times. He's Mr. Trump. Well, literally not a Trump supporter, but he knows a lot about Trump, and he follows national politics. Has a podcast with the great David Seaton, who was also a frequent guest on my show. And so they say, hey, Ben, let's return the favor. You were guest hosting at WVON the other day?
That's right.
And so they called me up and said, hey, come on the show. So it was Labor Day night at 7:00. Good thing I checked in because I thought it was
right?
8:00. I would have been late. And I showed up, but we flipped it. Usually when you're on, we talk national politics, but you had me talking local politics.
I could not think of a better guest.
Yeah, well, thank you. And so David and I love David dearly, but he's a little to the right of me.
Just a touch.
We mixed it up a little bit with local politics. All good. He'll be here on Friday, I think it is.
The best part, Dennis, you missed it. It was when Dennis goes to when Ben goes to David. Do you really think that?
Did I do that on the air?
Yes, you did. And when he said that, I was like, oh, man, here we go.
Yeah, I said, do you really think that?
Right.
I mean, or is it just like, you're doing it? If you're just doing it for the show, I get it, all right?
Right.
But do you
should
really
have heard the tone. I was like, wow. Okay.
And then it was kind of...
That was like 2 minutes into the show.
That's our Ben.
And one thing I liked about the live radio aspect of it was we got a text in the middle of the show from Stacey Davis Gates, who was listening, and then correcting me for something I said. You know, like, well, there you go.
Real time, baby.
Real time. So I gave her a shout out. So anyway, when you heard that Ted Cruz thing, I've been ranting and railing about that.
I got some thoughts.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Here's the deal. So we have these rash of shootings in Texas and really across the country, but a lot of them happening in Texas, right? These mass shootings, and the reflexive response by conservatives when something like that happens is to say, well, what about Chicago? They do it, from the president on down to your average Joe on Yahoo comments. Is the reflexive response is, what about Chicago? And the reason they do that is because, I'm not sure if you remember, after the second mass shooting, Chris Rock, the comedian, he cracked a joke on Twitter. And he said, you know what everyone says after these mass shootings? And they were like, what? And he put a picture of Betty White on the screen. Y'all don't get it?
No.
Betty White.
Oh,
Betty White.
Hey, man, I would have got it if it wasn't for the painkillers. Wow.
I bet he's white.
Yeah.
Right.
One more time, D, explain it to me.
I bet he's white.
And everybody lost their minds, calling him racist, calling him whatever. But here's the thing: when a minority group.
Wait, hold on. Before you go, and I just keep the thought. I have to ask you this. Now, tell the truth.
Yeah.
Raise your hand. Did you get the joke right away?
I did.
Okay.
Absolutely, I did. It was hilarious. Okay. I was on the floor at home. I almost dropped my phone.
But it's a great joke,
right?
But first of all, you have to know.
It was just a picture of her.
You have to know who Betty White is,
right?
Anyway, but that is very good. That's why Chris Rock is Chris Rock, and I am not. Go ahead.
So one thing that we see with these mass shootings is, again, when a minority group commits something, then they do it because of their minority status. And other minorities have to bear the brunt of the results of that behavior. And Caucasian or majority people do not suffer that. If a Caucasian person commits an atrocity, 9 times out of 10, it's because of mental illness. They get that card every time. Yeah. And then you're not able to extrapolate that behavior more broadly into whiteness. If a black person does it, we can talk then, and Black Lives Matter can have nothing to do with it. But then we got to have all these conversations about black culture, about Black Lives Matter, and we don't have, so all these shooters are almost a 19 to 21-year-old white guy that's really upset about something. And we're not able to talk about that pathology. And to avoid talking about that pathology, they're able to say, well, what about Chicago?
Yeah.
And that's the root of what Ted Cruz was doing. And then Lori Lightfoot, I have to give her a lot of credit.
Give Lori credit. Yeah.
She was tough in that situation. And she was able to combat him and then not speak so brazenly about race the way I just did. Yeah. Because she didn't really say anything about race. What she did say was, you can come to Chicago and we can talk about the real reasons. She did talk about guns coming in from Indiana.
Yeah.
But again, Ted Cruz's whole thing was really on the sly. Yeah, you worry about that in your black culture. That you fix that first before you start talking about Texas.
Well, and the... yes, there's absolutely that racial aspect, subterranean racial aspect. And that's what's so brilliant about Chris Rock, because he does do it subterranean, like,
right, exactly.
With the Betty White, which went over my head. What? And then I love the explanation. Bet he White.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we were like Mueller on that one. What page was that? Huh? Who said that?
Yeah, Mike Mueller in that one. But the other subterranean or not so subterranean point he was making, it was a defense of not doing anything on gun control.
Yep.
And so this is, this is the way Republicans frame the argument. So they'll say, well, gun control doesn't work. Just look at Chicago. There's all these shootings in Chicago, and they have restrictive gun laws.
Yep.
And so therefore, gun control doesn't work. So let's not even discuss it, even though there's these mass shootings. When, of course, and that's why I thought Lori Lightfoot was so on target, because she just immediately that if you just one city restricting the sale of guns does not stop the flow of guns into that city. They can come from all the other towns, cities, states, etc., where it's easy or relatively easy to purchase a gun. That's the point she was making. And then Ted Cruz acts as though, Chicago is this independent fortress in and of itself.
And here's what we learned today, much to Ted Cruz's chagrin, is that the shooter in this latest shooting bought his gun at a private sale because he couldn't pass a background check. So this guy had been institutionalized, and that was on his record. He had a mental, I forget the exact terminology for it, but it was a legal term that prevented him from being able to buy a gun through normal transactions. But because there are so many, he bought it from a gun show. And because we have the gun show loophole, he was able to go ahead and buy that gun. So because usually what they say is, well, background checks wouldn't have prevented many of these shootings. It would have prevented this one. We found that out today. He wouldn't have been able to buy a gun through normal means.
I did not know. I missed that
news. It just came out literally. Probably I was getting dressed. It was like an hour before I came down, and like 2 hours ago they said this. So a background check and the closing of that loophole could have prevented this tragedy.
And of course, I always like to add this point. Instead of using Chicago as a talking point, Ted Cruz and Donald Trump and all you Republicans, why don't you help Chicago? I think I said this on your show. I say this all the time now. Republicans just ignore the situation in cities like Chicago. They ignore the problems that Chicago is facing, and they just use it as a talking point. And that was so twisted. That's a projection, as they say, where Ted Cruz accuses Lori of coming up with a political talking point, when in fact that's exactly what he did. He was the one who started the whole thing.
Absolutely.
So anyway.
And then in the backdrop of all that, the governor of Texas just eased restrictions on buying guns again in the state. So again, he just made it even easier to buy guns in Texas.
That news too. That happened today?
No, that happened about 48 hours ago. That happened either the same day of the shooting or like the day before. So it was right around the shooting. He had just signed that into legislation. So it was, Texas is a hot mess, great state, but a hot mess. And it's so funny because when you juxtapose Ted Cruz versus Beto O'Rourke and his response to the shootings, he's on TV calling it what it is, to the point that they got to bleep him out. I'm sure you guys saw that. I won't repeat it on the Sun Times radio.
Well,
but again, he had a more full-throated, forthright, honest assessment of what the problem was, and he wasn't looking to use talking points, and that's what we need. So again, I have to give Beto O'Rourke a lot of credit on that.
All right, let's move on to Donald Trump, the latest outrage from Donald Trump. There's so much to go with. I have a whole list of things here.
Let's go.
Let's see. What's the first one you want to talk about? Well, you know what struck me was the how everything is up and down when it comes to foreign policy these days. I'm in the middle of reading a book, almost finished reading a book about a spy, a Soviet citizen who was a KGB agent. Follow me on this. In the 70s and the 80s, Atiba, and he was actually spying on behalf of England, and he had to be ushered out of the Soviet Union. This is the days before the Soviet Union fell, obviously, 1985, and he was spying for England, and he was successfully, they slipped him out of the Soviet Union just ahead of the KGB before they could nab him and torture him and probably kill him. And so in those days, we were all led to believe that the world is divided into two camps, good and evil, and capitalism and capitalist countries like the United States, democracies like the United States and England were good, and communist countries like the Soviet Union were evil.
Yep.
Now in Donald Trump, his coming around, and he's almost as though he's saying everything we were led to believe wasn't true. And by that I mean the bizarre way he's reacting to North Korea with the missile tests that, his aides are warning him that North Korea is developing a more sophisticated set of missiles that could really wreak destruction. And Donald Trump is going around saying, it doesn't mean anything. They're just testing. They're good people. He's a good leader, et cetera, so forth. It's just flip-flop. Everything was like they spent 50 years teaching us one thing, and now, so what do you make of all that?
The North Korea thing is probably the hardest to reconcile, in so much as I don't know what he gets out of it. So when you look at how he treats Saudi Arabia, we get it, that you can very easily follow the money and see why he behaves the way he does with Saudi Arabia and allows them to get away with what they get away with. Same thing with Russia. I understand his motivation, whether it's Russia has something on him, or whether, whether they helped him win the election, whatever it is, I understand why. North Korea, I genuinely don't understand. Because I don't understand what his end game is, and I don't understand what he gets out of it. North Korea isn't a particularly rich country. I don't know that there's anything they can do for him directly. He certainly isn't going to be opening a Trump Tower in North Korea anytime soon. So it's kind of crazy. I think other than the only motivation I see is he has a complete inability to admit he messed up. Because remember, the negotiations with Kim Jong-un was Little Rocket Man. And if Little Rocket Man doesn't stop doing this and doesn't stop doing that, he's going to see a wrath like the world has never seen. He had all these over-the-top threats, and we went from that to love letters. And again, there's absolutely been no substance in the negotiations. If anything, in the 3 years almost he's been in office now, North Korea and Kim Jong-un has become a nuclear-powered country. And under his, so again, he always blames Crimea under Obama. I wonder who he's going to blame now for North Korea becoming a nuclear power while he's in office. But again, all I can say is he came into the office saying that he was the best deal maker there was, that he knows how to make the deal, and that Obama sucked. And not only did Obama suck, but George Bush Jr. George W. sucked, and every president prior to him didn't get it done, and he's going to get it done. And now, not only has he not gotten it done, but it's as bad as it has ever been under any prior president. And North Korea has been able to really step up to the table as now a major player, and they haven't conceded anything.
Well, the other theory I have, listening to what you were saying, is that he views a peace overture with North Korea as his opportunity to win accolades to outdo Obama, get that Nobel Peace Prize that Obama got. And he has this bizarre competition in his head with Obama. He's trying to eradicate everything Obama.
Very true.
And, push forward, and including Obamacare, how the Republicans think they're going to win re-election, destroying healthcare. But that's a whole other issue. So I sometimes think, Atiba, this is all about like winning a Nobel Peace Prize or getting accolades as this grand visionary who brought peace to North Korea, even though it's like so much else with Donald Trump. There's not very there doesn't seem to be anything there. You know what I'm saying, other than his rhetoric.
So hearing you say that, what immediately comes to mind is one, you're right. Two, that's typical Trump behavior. Because here's what Donald Trump wants. He wants accolades with no work. Given everything that you're saying is true, I could almost respect and admire him if he wanted the Nobel Peace Prize, if he wanted to do the actual work to earn it. But he doesn't want to do the work. He just wants the prize. That's the same thing with him wanting a Purple Heart. Or like you said, I always wanted one of these. Like he wants a Purple Heart or the Medal of Freedom, but when it comes time to be drafted, he has bone spurs. So he's a person that wants the accolades of something, but he's either afraid or too lazy to actually do the work to attain it legitimately.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's nothing wrong with winning a Nobel Peace Prize. That's great. Go ahead. But actually bring about the peace.
Yeah. No, I know. Bring about the peace. It's very and it creates these very bizarre moments. I was having a conversation / debate of sorts. I was trying to avoid the debate part of it with a woman. I'll just leave her make anonymous, who was a Trump supporter, and she was explaining that. That she comes from a country that has had troubles from the left, let's put it this way. And that so she's very cautious and concerned about the leftist rhetoric of the Democratic Party. It's a little too socialist for her. And so she was explaining this, and then she started talking about the virtues of Trump, and she said, and he's making peace with North Korea. And I was like, why would you just complain about the Democrats being too leftist, reminding you of your old country you escaped and how horrible communism is, and now you're praising him for making these overtures. And that's why I'm saying, Atiba, it's like all these years, the things they've been feeding us under Donald Trump, it's just out the window. It's very inconsistent.
John Blake wrote an excellent piece in CNN a couple of weeks ago. And he was, I can't remember the title, but the title was very, very misleading because the title made it sound as if he was supporting Trump, and he wasn't. What he was but the substance of the article was to say one of the benefits of Donald Trump, and I think that's what he used in the title, is like, how Donald Trump has benefited us. And people were like, what is this about? And when you read the article, what he's saying is the benefit of Donald Trump is he has now laid waste to all of the talking points and the plausible deniability that Republicans have had all these years. So now with Donald Trump coming into office and destroying the budget and destroying the debt and destroying the deficit, and Tea Party members being utterly silent.
Yes.
So now we can put that argument aside. No, the Tea Party wasn't about deficits and debt. The Tea Party was a visceral racial response to the nation's first black president. And now we can put those types of arguments to bed. Republicans have never been about fiscal conservatism, because now we can look at what they've done with this overinflated military budget, what they've done with the budget overall, and with these tax cuts that are supposedly supposed to pay for themselves but don't. So all of these Republican talking points and arguments now, he's just laid bare to them that they are all false and that they mean nothing. So that's the one good thing, is that we're able now to talk about things for what they are because of him, because now they don't have the veneer of being able to have, again, the plausible deniability.
Well, I wonder if the Republicans can go back after this. Just follow me on this. Is Donald Trump threw out the window any pretense, to use your point, that deficits matter, and the Republican Party is following him on this, then they are just following him on this. Right. How can they go back now and preach?
Oh, you know how they can go back? The minute we get a Democratic president.
Yeah.
That's when they'll do it, like they do every time.
Yeah.
Right? Because, again, deficits matter when there's a Democratic president. And with that said, this is one point I wanted to make, too. When you talk about people who trash socialism, I'm not claiming to be a socialist. It's just that I believe, like Elizabeth Warren, that capitalism still needs rules, that it cannot be unchecked. But with that said, even the most staunch capitalists, which would be people in banking, I would assume, all of them hate socialism until they need it. But when they need it, it's okay.
Yeah.
So when we had our last great recession that was caused by unchecked capitalism, what fixed it? I swear it was socialism.
Yes.
Because we were told that the banks were too big to fail.
Yeah.
That wasn't something we were told we had an option to do. We were told we had to do.
Yeah.
That the taxpayers needed to bail out the banks because they are too big to fail.
Yeah.
That's socialism, last I checked. The government giving the banks money, isn't that socialism?
Yeah.
So everybody hates it until they need it.
Yeah.
But socialism was the thing that got this country back on track. So again, and I wish more Democratic candidates could speak that forcefully about it, because again, everybody hates it until they need it.
Yeah. And by the way, there was an interesting comment. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm usually critical of John Cass. I'm going to give him a shout out today, Chicago Tribune columnist. He's far to the right of me, but he wrote a very intriguing column today where he talked about, he just thinks the Democrats should just get out there and nominate Bernie Sanders. And that the basic point that came down to this is that you got Donald Trump, who's on the right, and you got Bernie Sanders is on the left. And neither of them are making any bones, or at least Bernie Sanders makes no bones about the fact that he's on the left. So let's just get it on.
See where the country is,
see
right?
where this country is.
Right.
And you know, I voted for Bernie in 2016.
As
yeah, everybody knows that. And I kind of...
You mean in the primary,
in the
right?
primary,
Okay,
yeah. I'm not that diluted. I'm gonna vote for Bernie.
I don't want anybody accusing you.
No. I was not one of those Bernie bros that just ran away. I mean, I thought that was a little absurd. But anyway, I kind of agreed with that point. It struck this country. You know, it's like this is a real choice,
right?
I mean, a real profound choice. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think the process needs to play out as far as the Democratic primary is concerned, but I could certainly share that thought process. I want to see where we are. And if this country votes for Donald Trump again, then we get what we deserve. If after the first 3 years or 2.5 at this point, how he still has 40% support is beyond me. But if after this 2.5 years of what is evidence, not what we think he'll do, of what we know he'll do, of him misappropriating money to build his wall, of him separating families, of him kicking transgender people out of the military, if those things aren't enough for you yet, irrespective of who the Democratic candidate is, then America deserves what she gets.
Atiba Buchanan is my guest in the studio. We're talking Donald Trump, as we always do when Atiba's here. And Atiba, I saw this Casey Landowski, who is a former Trump aide, is now running for senator, I think it is, in New Hampshire. And he's causing great consternation among the regular Republicans there. I don't know if you saw this article.
I did not. Who's the senator now?
I'm not quite. Can't remember.
I mean, did somebody retire, or is it primary, or what is it?
Yeah, and it's a vacant seat, as I recall.
Okay.
I would know that off the top of my head if it wasn't for the drugs and the painkillers that are slurring around in my brain right now. He's out trumping Trump, and it makes me wonder if that Trump brand is going to work outside of Trump. What's your thoughts on that?
It just because, as you know, all politics are local. So I don't know enough about New Hampshire's politics to say whether or not it will work. If we just go back to the most recent election in 2018, then we saw that the Trump brand only worked in very, very limited and specific areas, and even a lot of areas that he thought it would work in, those suburbanites came out and voted Democrat. So I mean, again, in West Virginia, will it work? Sure, but New Hampshire, I'm not sure that's going to work there.
See on that one. And you mentioned Trump Tower before a little while ago. There was an interesting story in the paper about Mike Pence in Ireland. Talk about that one a little bit.
Okay, so Mike Pence is going to Ireland on a kind of not of a missionary mission, but he has family. He's Irish. He has family from Ireland, and he's going to Ireland on taxpayer dime, which is fine. But for some reason, Donald Trump suggested to him that he should stay at the Trump property, which is 181 miles from where he's actually going to visit. And he was all prepared to stay at the Trump property, which means that our taxpayer dollars would be going directly back into Trump's pocket, because to date, he has never divested himself fully from his businesses. It's a clear conflict of interest, and just today he finally began to walk that talk back. But the problem is that when he walked it back, what Pence and Trump have tried to do now is blame it on the media. Well, the media misrepresented what I wanted to do, and as opposed to continuing what I was going to do, I'm just going to blame it on the media and then not stay there. But that was the problem. So he was literally going to stay 181 miles.
Yeah.
So there's no place closer to this place that he's visiting. I forget the city, and he would have had to take a helicopter.
Yeah.
I think it's called Marine 2. He was going to take Marine 2.
I love that movie.
Every day, every day, back and forth between the Trump property and where he was going. Again, 181 miles distance.
Like at taxpayer expense.
At taxpayer expense.
And that's no. I think the article made it pretty. When you said for some reason he was going to stay at Trump at the Trump facility, Trump wanted him to stay.
Right. He suggested.
Yeah.
That's who suggested it.
Where's the quote in the paper I saw on this one? It's a pretty funny quote where Trump requested him to stay there, and Pence's chief of staff said this quote, "I don't think it was a request like a command. I think that it was a suggestion." That's the funniest quote I've heard in life. It wasn't a request like a command. It was like, hey, man, I don't know. Maybe you want to stay at my hotel.
Right. And that's the same language they use when they talk about Trump wanting to fire James Comey. Right? Because it wasn't like a direct command. It was kind of this, understanding, this suggestion, this soft, they try and soften it up. So that's what they do every time. They always want to give him plausible deniability and never say it is what it is. He told him to stay at the Trump property, and it's that simple.
Yeah. So the other thing that we haven't talked about since the last time you were in the studio has to do with the fact that the Democrats finally they got Deutsche Bank to acknowledge that they had Trump's taxes. They have his back taxes, and it looks as though the Democrats actually may make that move to force Trump to release his income taxes. What do you think the outcome of that's going to be?
I have no confidence at all in what the Democrats are doing. To date, Trump has been able to best them at every turn, and mainly because of William Barr, right?
Attorney General.
Exactly. So the Attorney General has been in his corner. He is Trump's personal attorney as opposed to the Attorney General for the United States of America, and with him being over the Justice Department, between the two of them, they have been able to circumvent literally every attempt that the Democrats have made to get information. Everyone they've subpoenaed has said, no, I'm not coming, and there's really not a lot they can do about it. Deutsche Bank really still hasn't been forthcoming. I mean, they've admitted that they have them, but admitting that and then turning them over is two different things. Even when you look at the way the Mueller report played out, there hasn't been a thing yet that's been able to stick to Trump. He's been Teflon. To be honest, I don't see why this is any different. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. So you think we're going to go into the 2020 election without seeing those tax returns?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Well, I got a feeling it's going to come down to.
I'd love to be wrong.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to some court's decision. That's my guess.
And I believe that. But when? And that's what I'm saying. I think that Trump has the benefit of time on his side. And I think we'll get the court decision in 2021 or, December of 2020.
He may outlast it. Atiba, we've come to the end of our segment. We're going to bring on David Hochberg after this. Why don't you tell folks where they can hear your podcast and all about your podcast?
Absolutely. The name of the show is called Humanity in the Headlines. We air Saturdays at 1 on intellectualradio.com. We have phenomenal guests. What we do is much what you do. We bring in guests that are experts in the field. We try and break things down as much as possible and remind people that there's always a human cost to the headline that you read. So that's why it's called Humanity in the Headlines. So we can always remind folks that there are people behind those shootings. There are people behind those incarcerations. There are people behind those separations so that, we don't forget the human element in all this.
All right. Atiba Buchanan, thank you very much. And he does that show with David Seaton, and David will be with us. I believe it's on Friday. David will be coming in, and I'll be dueling with David a little bit. I love dueling with David.
Yes.
It's always fun to do that. Thanks so much, Atiba. Appreciate you coming in. And
thank you for having me.
The next time I come in, I will have these bandages off, all right? And maybe the pain killers will have left my system, and I'll be able to see the world clearly again.
I'm glad you had a successful surgery, and I hope you feel better.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
That's Atiba Buchanan. We got David Hochberg, the legendary, the immortal David Hochberg sitting on deck. We're going to bring him on when we return.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. Discover the breadth and majesty of Chicago's architecture on a Chicago Architecture Center bus tour. From bungalows to Bauhaus, our expert docents will share the fascinating stories behind our city's architecture. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm actually on a bus tour right now. Oh my, look at that wonderful piece of architecture. Get a special discount for Illinois residents from July 15th to August 15th. All Illinois residents get 50% off select walking tours. Visit architecture.org/IL-resident. Attention Chicago innovators and creators, 2019 Chicago Ideas Week is coming soon. October 12th through the 17th, this annual Ideas Festival is back, and it's the largest, most affordable Ideas Festival of its kind. They bring in hundreds of thought leaders from around the globe and some local to share ideas and spark action all across Chicago. To get a better idea of what to expect, here's a bit of audio from last year's Chicago Ideas Week with special guest and Chicago comedian Cameron Esposito.
Everything that I have ever tried to do has had two motivations. One is I really do believe in trying to create social change, and then the other one is I'm scared and alone too, so I would like for you to join me. You know, every job that I have, I try to make sure to hold the door open. That's like my motto for like if I get through, you're coming with me, and I believe in that wholeheartedly, and especially if I have more privilege than you, like I'm holding the door open for you even wider.
October 12th through the 17th, it's 2019 Chicago Ideas Week. Tickets go on sale to members on August 22nd and to general public September 10th. Once again, if you're an innovator or creator in the city of Chicago or even outside the city, you must join us for Chicago Ideas Week, October 12th through the 17th. For tickets and event information, head to chicagoideas.com. That's chicagoideas.com, and we hope to see you October 12th through the 17th for 2019 Chicago Ideas Week. Today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by Green Element Resale. They're located at 6241 North Broadway in Chicago, and people, they are a badass. Listen to the items they have here at Green Element Resale. I'm looking at a picture of books. They got furniture, appliances, antiques, Ben's favorite, candles. So many things at Green Element Resale for you to buy. 6241 North Broadway in Chicago, Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. Sundays, 12 until 7 p.m. It's Green Element Resale. And hey, if you're ever on Broadway between Granville and Devon, stop in and say thank you, because Green Element Resale is the only thrift shop that helps bring you the Ben Joravsky Show Tuesdays through Fridays, all right? You can learn more about them at greenelementresale.com, 6241 North Broadway in Chicago. It's amazing. And hey, fellas, can you feel it in the air? I think you can. It's football season. That's right. Football season days away, which means that the best sports reporters in Chicago want to offer you, yes, you, our listeners, an exclusive deal on unlimited digital access to all of the stories you love in the Chicago Sun-Times. Do not miss a game this season. Get all the big plays, scores, and stories from the Sun-Times, and for a limited time only, you can lock in our lowest rate yet. It's only $29.99 for a full year of all the news and sports that you need to know. Stay up to date on breaking stories, get the deep dives and investigations from Sun-Times reporters, and go deep inside City Hall with best-in-class political reporting. And, of course, cheer for the big games with the best sports team in the city. $29.99 for a full year. $29.99, I say. You cannot do better than that. Isn't that right, Robert Mueller?
That's correct.
See? Take advantage of this exclusive deal now at suntimes.com/Ben. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
The pain pills are wearing off, and I'm starting to feel the pain from the incision. That's good and bad, because it means maybe my brain's a little sharper than it had been, but man, I'm starting to feel it like a knife stabbing me in the head. But helping dull the pain is my old friend David Hochberg. Back in the old days when I had a radio show, he was a regular. He supported my show, and he was a regular guest on the show. We would talk real estate, we talk mortgage rates, we talk sports, we talk a little. But David's a little to the right of me. Yeah. I got the other David who's coming in on Friday. David Seaton's a little to the right of me too. Most people I think are a little to the right of me. But Hochberg and I always got along well, and I said when I get this new show, David Hochberg, come on. So welcome back, Cotter. Welcome to my show.
Thank you. You've never looked better. With the, what are you doing? A little pregame for Halloween?
This is my Jack Nicholson. You're old enough to know Chinatown. I do this joke based on, well, maybe you never saw the movie Chinatown.
I've seen Chinatown.
You saw Chinatown. Well, if you recall, halfway through Chinatown, Roman Polanski plays the thug, cuts Jack Nicholson's nose, and he goes around the rest of the show with his bandage. So today I had basal cell cancer removed from my nose, and I went in there, David, thinking it was just going to be a simple in and out procedure, because that's like the first part of it was very in and out, you know. And I rode my bike to the doctors. I thought I would ride my bike from there to here, and then the doctor said, "Oh no, whacking, slapping, and cutting and drilling." I think a sewing machine was brought in to sew up the wound, and they put this huge bandage on.
Looks good.
And
I did the same thing when I got my vasectomy. I rode my bike to the vasectomy, and then the guy's like, "How you getting home?" I got my bike outside. It's like, not a good idea.
Yeah, no, that's a good joke. I rode my bike to my vasectomy. Anyway, David Hochberg, the mortgage man. Tell folks about your mortgage company.
I am the leader of a group called Team Hochberg. I've been originating loans. August was 19 years. Got into it August of 2000. Recently worked up until the end of last year at a company called Pearl Mortgage, until they were acquired by another company that we decided not to go with the company acquiring Pearl Mortgage, and started our own group at a company called Homeside Financial. We're a residential mortgage broker and banker. We help your listeners and folks in 35 states secure financing on primary residences and non-owner occupied properties up to 4 units. That's what we do. And we do a pretty good job, if I do say so myself.
And so you broke from Pearl for years. I was always
I didn't break from Pearl. I didn't know. Let's because I'm under a lawsuit right now accusing me of breaking from Pearl. That's fine. It's public. You know, they're suing me for $1.7 million for doing something I didn't do. And my comment is, you might as well sue me for $1.7 billion. You're not getting the $1.7 million. At least make a big, at least make a splash, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lawsuit. It's working its way through. You can look it up. They're accusing me of doing crap that I didn't do, and the lawyers are making a fortune, which is fine. So we'll just let it work its way through the court system, and we'll figure it out on the other side. But Pearl decided to get acquired by a company out of Cleveland, and we decided to break off my group and a couple other people under their own free will, because the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, even though some people think that you still have to work for them until you die.
Yeah.
But there's something called the 13th Amendment, Benny, 1850, 60-ish, somewhere in there, that abolished slavery. But that's working its way through the court system, and we decided to break off and start our own system. It's the same group of guys and gals originating loans, just a stronger chassis with a different, stronger engine in it, and it's the same guys and girls behind the wheel driving the truck. It's no different.
Well, okay, so we'll leave that one in the.
You can leave it whatever.
We'll leave it there, and we'll continue the conversation where we left it off before, which was probably about 8 months ago, if I recall.
My swimsuit modeling career?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
And we always would be talking about whether the combination of rising property taxes and the booming real estate market in the city of Chicago was making the city unaffordable for the people that for many years guys like you got mortgages for. So give me an update on that, on your opinion on that.
Well, I could tell you what's happening. The folks that are renting, so roughly 62 to 65% of the people in the United States own a home, which means roughly 35 to 37% of the people rent a home or live in their parents' basement, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's fine. I mean, that's why we have rental properties. That's why we have apartment buildings. But I think the folks that rent think that they are bulletproof and rising real estate taxes don't impact them. But the problem that they don't see is that the owner of the 3 or 4 unit building that you're renting an apartment in, or the 20 to 150 unit building, the corporation or the entity that owns that property, just got their real estate taxes hiked up tremendously, thanks to the fine people at the county board, right? Tony Preckwinkle and her band of thieves. Okay?
David, just the views and opinions of David Hochberg.
Here, you know what? 630 units of government. Okay, I got Jack Franks out in McHenry County, Democrat, cutting real estate taxes. And we've got 18 board members in Cook County that do nothing but increase our taxes. Right. Tell me how that's right.
This conversation is picking up exactly where it left off.
It's still frosty. Yeah. Okay, why? Because the real estate tax bills hit. And you know why? Because I used to work with people that had $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 worth of credit card debt. That used to be the norm. Right now, that's double A ball. Okay, we're seeing people with 30, 40, 50, 60 G's in credit card debt that can't afford to pay the property taxes. Okay, it's only an extra $100.
I recall the last time you were on the show with me, you went on a tangent about, and it was a riff about suburban school systems needing to consolidate.
Still do.
Because they're having two systems for two suburbs or what have you.
I've got 31,000 residents. I just passed this on. I live in Northbrook, right? A very nice community up in the northern suburban area. Okay, we have 31,700 people in Northbrook. We have 4 freaking school districts for 31,000 residents.
Yeah, I remember this.
Okay, 31,000 residents. I've got 2 in Northbrook, District 27, 28, which are great schools. Don't get me wrong. Phenomenal school district. Great teachers, great educators, great buildings. Every building they've got is brand new, okay? Because, we've replaced every single building within, every single building's brand new. Yeah. And for 31,000 residents, we have 4 school districts. Now, 2 of the school districts, the easternmost takes in part of Highland Park and something else, and the westernmost has got some like Glenview and some Mundelein and some Wheeling, which is fine. We need 4 flipping school districts for 31,700 residents. Really? I got 4. And again, 4 superintendents making 200 G's a year.
Hey,
okay,
getting at
four. So I got almost $1 million, probably over $1 million, tied up in a superintendent. Okay, if a superintendent's so good at what he or she does, you can't handle. You can only handle 3 schools, right? I've got 45 people I manage. You can only handle 3 schools. Right, you can't handle 9 schools for 250 G's a year.
So why do they have so many school districts out there?
Why? Because the residents in my town are idiots. Okay, because I will tell you because we have 27 is west Northbrook and 28 is east Northbrook, and 28 doesn't want to merge with 27. And I'm just like, and I go to a meeting, I'm like, why do we have 2 school districts in Northbrook? Well, we can't merge because one's union and one's not. I'm like, what's that got to do with it? Let the teachers decide.
Yeah.
I'm like, open it up.
Yeah.
Right? Say, hey, we're merging 27, 28. Teachers, you want the union or you don't want the union?
Yeah.
Right? Vote on it.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you can't do that. This is non-union and this is union. I'm like, well, it's 2019.
Yeah. Okay.
We have grown men and women educating our young kids on how to be good students and good people in society here. They can't make an educated decision if they want a union or not. And if they want a union and the teachers that aren't in a union don't want the union, to go find another job someplace else.
Yeah.
If the people in the union, the union just happens to get voted out, listen, I'm not pro or anti-union. I'm just making a statement.
Yeah.
That's one of the responses. And I'm thinking, well, I could cut you, and you. That's 600 G's worth of overhead.
No, but I think you were getting at it the first time. It's a sense of status, because I remember when the debate was going on in the new Trier school system. Follow me in this, David, which is
I know exactly where you're going.
Just east of you and
it was
south.
Highland Park. It was Highland Park. Highland Park had a huge battle. We can't consolidate schools because we don't want the Highwood kids in with the Highland Park kids.
I didn't know about that fight. I knew the New Trier fight.
New
but
Trier
Highwood
had a
kids
fight too.
go to Highland Park, don't they?
What's that?
The Highwood kids go to Highland Park.
But within the school district, the grade school district, I'm not talking high school.
I see.
The grade school,
right.
You've got Northern Highland Park and Highwood. And the people, all the liberal Democrats in Highwood, in Highland Park. Okay, all the we don't want those. We need to be within walking distance of our home. God forbid.
He's finding your inner Howard Stern here.
I mean, God
Howard
forbid
Stern.
our kids get on a bus to go to school. Okay, we need a 7-mile turnaround for all the minivans and all the Cadillacs to turn around to drop the kids off.
But New Trier had a similar
Same
debate, and they ended up what they did was they made the old New Trier West a freshman school. Is that correct?
I think it was freshman or is it freshman, sophomore, or freshman? Yeah. Well, they had too many kids.
And I said this earlier in the show, David, when I was talking to Atiba.
Very nice man, by the way.
Yeah, Atiba Buchanan, an outstanding radio.
He came from the mortgage industry and knows his stuff.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. And he's a very good talk show host. He has his podcast, and why he doesn't have a show on radio, I do not know.
Ridiculous.
It is ridiculous because he's exceedingly talented. But
we all know how solid in the radio industry is.
Yeah, the radio industry is very
making good decisions on broadcasters.
Yeah. Thank you, David Hochberg.
No problem.
Anyway, but at least they listen. to their residents. Generally, you know, when they have it, like you said, let's have a referendum. We listen to
Sure.
it in the city of Chicago. Here, I'm going to throw this one at you. Pat Quinn got on the ballot a referendum as to whether the citizens of Chicago would impose a 2-term limit on their mayor. All right, and Rahm Emanuel fought him tooth and nail, but Pat Quinn prevailed. He got enough signatures, and let me tell you, it was not an easy thing. David Hochberg,
No, he worked hard.
Worked very hard to get those signatures. He went on. That Rahm still fought him, and
didn't run for mayor.
What's that?
And then didn't run for mayor.
And then didn't run for mayor, but just despite Quinn, you know what I mean?
He fought it.
He fought it. And right now it's heading, I think, to the Supremes. In the meantime, we had to vote because it was still undecided. So
Sure.
they put it on the ballot, but they won't let us know.
Which is ridiculous.
It's utterly ridiculous.
Which is ridiculous.
The voters may have voted for all I know, 80%.
Do we live in the United States of America, or do we live in the USSR? I mean,
the old USSR,
the old USSR.
Even the USSR doesn't exist anymore. So, in your opinion,
yes,
they've now revealed the results of this referendum. Right. What do you think the outcome?
I think it's great.
No, what do you think the outcome? People voted.
I think people would want a 2-term mayor. Yeah. I think people are tired of the bureaucracy. I think people are tired of the cronyism. I think people are tired of the old school, old boy and old girl network of what happens here. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think we have in Cook County one of the most corrupt systems around. You know, starting from the top all the way down. We need 18 people on the board, the county board. Okay, we need over 650 units of government. Nobody could sit down and say, how are we going to streamline this? Yeah, I seriously. Again, Jack Franks. I love Jack Franks.
McHenry County.
McHenry County board. He was a McHenry County state representative, Democrat, forever.
Yeah.
He ran for board. He cut seats. He reduced the size of the board. He went right after the people that he should have gone after for doing jobs haphazardly, who were doing good jobs that were costing McHenry County a ton of money. Gave a 10% tax rebate. He used the money in a reserve account that was sitting for some nursing home or whatever, High Valley, whatever that is, to give money back because they're sitting with millions of dollars in their reserve account, which was over the allowable limit, and he gave it back in the form of a tax credit. Yeah. Why can't we do that?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think Lori Lightfoot's heading in the right direction in your opinion?
I think Lori Lightfoot is heading into a headstrong wind here. And listen, I was a big fan of Lori Lightfoot. I joked I was going to buy a condo in the city just to vote for her because Tony Preckwinkle makes my freaking skin crawl.
He does not like Tony Preckwinkle.
I think she's full of crap. I'll tell you what. Bring her in here, this chair, and sit Jack Franks here, right? You got the head of Cook County and the head of McHenry County.
McHenry
Don't give me that crap.
Wait, I haven't even gotten it.
I'm going to tell you what your argument is. Well, McHenry County is 1/5 the size of Cook County.
Is it even
government? It's county government.
Is it even that? I mean,
it doesn't matter.
Smaller than that.
It's county government. Okay, he took a board and eliminated board seats.
We got problems in Cook County that dwarf McHenry County.
Well, why? Because nothing's changed. Why do we have problems in this state? Because nothing's changed.
Well, I mean, the problems.
Why do we have problems in this state?
The problems of social inequity, the problems of poverty, the problems of crime. I mean, they're far greater concentration in Chicago and in Cook County than they are in McHenry. Now we're gonna
No. Rauner was a disaster.
I think you concede that point.
Absolutely, I conceded that when he got in there. Okay, he was a joke. All right, he was an absolute freaking train wreck when he got in there. Everybody saw it, right? He did everything against whatever Madigan wanted to do. He did the exact opposite. And then 4 years later, Madigan railroaded him and rolled him right out of town.
So wait, time out. Go back to you're about to. You say you like where Lori's heading, right?
I like where Lori's heading because Lori's peeling off of Band-Aids where people aren't peeling off Band-Aids.
All right.
Okay. She's going right at it, and I think it's great. I think it's refreshing.
Well, we'll see where she's going with it. I'm not quite clear. My take on that opening speech was that it was a punt. And so
which opening speech?
Oh, well, you missed it. She gave her quote unquote budget speech last week.
No, I saw that where, and my only challenge with that was, okay, where are we cutting? And my whole thing is this, and I said, and I'm consistent on this. I've been on the radio for 17 years. You want to raise my taxes, right? $1, you cut something, $1. Okay. Don't keep raising taxes. Okay. Figure out a way to consolidate something over here to reduce costs and then increase, I'll pay more taxes to eliminate a deficit. But don't sit there and say we're not going to consolidate and save money someplace. Well, if you want to increase me $10, show me where you're cutting $10 so we can get to the middle quicker.
Right. We'll
What's wrong with that?
We'll cut a deal right now.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing. So the first thing I'm cutting, that $1.3 billion that they're giving to build Lincoln Yards. There we go. We just figured it out. Now we can raise taxes.
It's fine with me.
We see eye to eye on that one.
I got no problem with
that. We do see eye to eye.
I got no problem with that. What? Oh, we got to give you $1.3 billion for infrastructure for 30 years or a 20-year sweetheart deal. You got a bunch of billionaires throwing a bunch of dough in there. You can't handle $1.3 billion worth of infrastructure. Okay, kiss my rear end. I mean, give me a break. Okay, if you look at the people behind that operation over there, right? Look at the billions of dollars that they've got together. You're telling me that they can't throw in a little extra to take care of the infrastructure for land that they bought that they want to redevelop to make more billions? And again, I'm a capitalist, baby. I'm glad.
Well, that's not capitalism. That's a socialist for the rest.
Well, sure. Yeah. Sure. You want help with your source system.
All right, so there we go. We just figured it out.
Right.
If you want to, before you raise taxes,
here's your 1.3.
There's $1.3 billion. That's David Hochberg. I'm Ben Joravsky. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get his...
Is it hot in here? Am I having like heat flashes in here?
I don't...
My God.
I don't
Is there
know.
Like oxygen or something? You got air? What do you got to do to get some air conditioning rolling in here?
I just feel like your heat has just blasted away.
I have to take my shirt off and really give you a show here.
Oh yeah, that would be it. My bandage and your shirt.
Can I borrow that when you're done with it? Because that's a great look. I'd probably get a cup of soup for free at the local diner.
We'll be right back.
That's correct.
Attention Chicago innovators and creators, 2019 Chicago Ideas Week is coming soon. October 12th through the 17th, this annual Ideas Festival is back, and it's the largest, most affordable Ideas Festival of its kind. They bring in hundreds of thought leaders from around the globe and some local to share ideas and spark action all across Chicago. To get a better idea of what to expect, here's a bit of audio from last year's Chicago Ideas Week with special guest and Chicago comedian Hannibal Buress.
The real reason I came home is just because I was traveling a lot anyway. I wasn't in New York that much, and I don't have a full-time job in New York. I work a lot, but I'm not in New York, so it was just like I don't need to be here anymore. And also I just wanted to work on different stuff here in Chicago. So I have this center that I'm working on the west side, Melvina Masterminds. It's going to be arts and then a tech program and after school programming for kids in the North Austin area. So just wanted to be back. There we go.
October 12th through the 17th, it's 2019 Chicago Ideas Week. Tickets go on sale to members on August 22nd and to general public September 10th. Once again, if you're an innovator or creator in the city of Chicago or even outside the city, you must join us for Chicago Ideas Week, October 12th through the 17th. For tickets and event information, head to chicagoideas.com. That's chicagoideas.com, and we hope to see you October 12th through the 17th.
It's Chicagoland's adult entertainment playground. It's the world-famous Admiral Theater, 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. The Admiral is homegrown from Chicago, and it's the most conveniently located club in all of the city. 15 minutes from the O'Hare Airport in downtown Chicago Loop. Voted Chicago's best strip club, the Admiral has showgirls galore and a variety of adult entertainment shows. The world-famous Admiral Theater, open every day from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. For events, showtime, and other information, visit AdmiralX.com. Must be 18 years of age or older to enter.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky, take us home.
Hiring?
Yeah.
I need a part-time job.
That super cool music means the end of another super cool show. You haven't played this one in a while. Let's see if I can do this through all the painkillers, all right? That super cool music means the end of another super cool show, but it's not done yet. And by the way, David Hochberg in the studio.
So I drove down for 2 hours. Took me 2 hours to get here for a half-hour segment. What? This is injustice right there. Should put that for a vote. I think I should get at least an hour and a half.
By the way, David Hochberg, not only does he sell mortgages, not only does he opine about politics, not only does he move left when he comes on my show. You should hear him when he's on the other shows. Not only does he know everything about sports, but he plays a mean piano. That's David Hochberg on the piano.
That's me.
D, I did that even with the medication in my head.
Way to go.
Oh, man. You got an update for me, young man?
Oh, yeah, I do. Sorry, I was just entrenched in that. Outro you do.
I don't know how I did it this time around.
All right, the battle between Lori Lightfoot and Ted Cruz continues. Who would have thought this would have been the news this week? Lori Lightfoot. Okay, so as you know, Ted Cruz went on a gun control rant on Twitter and threw Chicago under the bus while doing it. Lori Lightfoot responded, say, hey, keep our name out of your mouth, pal, and you're a coward. And then Ted Cruz weighed in. They're going back and forth. Well, it's Lightfoot's turn, I guess. Lightfoot says, at Ted Cruz, if you really care about Chicagoans, Texans, and everyone facing gun violence, take action, tell. And then she added old Mitch McConnell, his handle there.
Was it Moscow Mitch?
Oh, yeah, no, it's at Senate Majority Leader.
I see.
Send him and tell him it's time for universal background checks and assault weapons ban. Those reforms will save lives. Do your job.
Yeah, and listen, I was mildly critical. I made fun of Lori a little bit of her speech in my latest reader column. I had a little fun with it, but I'm with her 100% on this one. Ted Cruz is trying to take our pain and use it for his political gain. And if he's not going to weigh in and help us, if he's not going to come up with some money from the feds that will enable us to offset some of these tax hikes that Lori has to deal with to pay off all our obligations that she inherited. So I got to give her that. She did not rate. It's not her fault we have all these obligations. So if he's not going to help out, then stay out, in my humble opinion. I'm with Lori Lightfoot 100% on that one.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, young man.
Why didn't we know that we were, and I live in the northern suburbs, but I'm a Chicagoan, right?
Okay.
Why didn't the 8 million people in Chicago know that? Well, whatever.
It's less than 3 million now. But
it's
go
less
ahead.
than 3 million, but 8 million people in the area. The 3 million live in Chicago. No, until Lori Lightfoot stepped to that podium that we were in a hole for $1 billion.
Oh, well, first of all, okay, the games, that's budget games.
I know it's budget games, but
that go on
that's
forever.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, welcome to politics.
I understand.
But as Rahm was leaving office, here's the interesting thing about how the politics works. Had Rahm run for re-election, he would have been proclaiming that he was the greatest fiduciary wizard of all time and that there was no significant deficit.
Right.
But because he stepped out and he was not going to run for re-election, he could say, surprise, because he was going to lose.
Yeah.
He could say that there was a deficit, a big deficit. So he could start to be honest about it, all right? So then Lori inherits it, and it's, as you know, when a politician takes office, it's important for her, in this case, to say the deficit is even worse than I thought, because you can blame everything on the 100%. Person that went before you.
I understand.
And so all the blame goes there. So why don't we have a realistic understanding? Because there's so much there's just so much lying that goes on and particularly in Chicago. There's so much concealing of how much we don't know. Like there's 1.5 billion in the TIF reservoir or reserves. So why don't we use that?
100%.
Yeah, we've already got it in the bank. We don't even have
a budget hole.
Right. But they want to hold on to it. See, now it's Lori's money. Before that, it was Rahm's money, David. Right. Before that, it was Daley's money. They want to be able to
take care of their friends.
Take care. Lori had to redo City Hall the other day. Okay, it was $220,000. Where'd she get the money? Go to the TIF.
Good.
There's $220,000. So you ask me why are we ignorant? Because so many of our elected officials
don't want to tell us the truth.
They don't want to tell us the truth,
and that's a problem.
Yeah, that is a big problem.
And you know what? I was huge. Again, I live in Northbrook, but when she ran and kicked the crap out of Tony Preckwinkle, I loved it because you know why? because Tony Preckwinkle is full of crap.
All right.
In my opinion. No, I'm telling you.
I know, but you keep coming back to Tony Preckwinkle.
No, and
there's a lot of politicians
and I'm telling, and Michael Madigan's just as bad as
I would say for the city of Chicago, you would have ahead of Tony Preckwinkle, who are far more destructive to the city of Chicago. I would have Rahm Emanuel, Richard M. Daley, Ed Burke, those three right off the top.
Okay. Ed Burke's got his challenges right now, and the other two are out of office. So,
finally.
Finally.
Yeah.
I think Ed Burke is, I think he's, whatever. We all know what's going on with Mr. Burke and his challenges with the government, and I wish him well. But whatever, okay, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. I don't wish. I don't wish bad on anybody, right? And whatever happens, happens, and it's going to work itself out. All that I'm saying is that you have to look at the people in charge. Tell me why you're in charge of Cook County. Why we need all of those layers of government.
Okay, fair enough about Cook County. But the fact of the matter is you keep coming back to Tony Preckwinkle, and I'm saying it's so far more pervasive than Tony Preckwinkle. She's not even in the top 10. When I think about, listen, I lived through all those Daily years, David. I've been writing column after column, blasting Daily.
They're no longer here.
I know, but the point is you ask how we got here. Your question was how we got here year after year.
But we continue to do the same thing.
But it's just like this game that we've constantly...
Stop the game. Stop the game.
Well, we'll see.
Create a new game.
Here we go.
Okay.
So now we're at a moment,
right?
Perhaps.
I love Lori Lightfoot. I wish her the best.
Yeah, but see, that first speech, she didn't really come clean again. It was a little more of the game. She didn't. Again, we keep talking about this tiff.
You need to rip off the Band-Aid.
But beyond that, you have to be. She said, "I'm going to put the light on, let the light out." What's her saying, D? Let it shine, let it shine. And so that
she wasn't shining. Okay.
Well, she wasn't telling us the whole
shining.
story.
Right. Okay. So
we
you're
just
going to
talked about the $1.3 billion they're giving.
Rip it back. Put it back into the pension hole. Okay. You got firefighters and cops that need a contract. You got teachers that need a contract.
I would much rather see that money go to firefighters,
100%.
cops, and teachers.
So would I.
The point is, it's like I'm seeing more of the same, and that's why I'm saying you're concentrating on Tony Preckwinkle. I don't even think Tony Preckwinkle is even right now in the top 5 of most influential people governing the city of Chicago. I would not put her in the top 5. Would not put her in the top 5.
You wouldn't put her in the top 5?
No, I put Lori Lightfoot ahead of her.
She's the head of the Democratic committee in Cook County.
She's the head of the Democratic Party in
she's
Cook
got
County.
a little power.
She's got a little power.
She's got a little power.
Yeah.
And you're going to say she's number 6?
Well, let's say I can name 5.
Okay, go.
Okay, Lori Lightfoot.
Yes.
Michael Madigan.
I agree.
Jb Pritzker.
Okay.
John Cullerton.
Okay. Those are pretty powerful guys.
Yeah, okay. So
I know Lori Lightfoot's not. I mean, so.
And that's just in the political sphere.
Okay. And you're not going to throw Tony number 5?
No, I wouldn't. Who's Tony number 5? I would probably so I have to stay in the city of Chicago.
In the city of Chicago.
Local. I can't go to like Durban or something like that because I think Durban has more power.
He doesn't know what date is. Right.
Okay, stop it.
Give me Durban. You want me to tell you a Durban story? You want me to tell you a Durban story?
No, wait. I got to come up with number 5
because you can't. Tony Preckwinkle's number 5.
Okay, but those 4 ahead of her.
Okay, well you said 5.
Right,
you should have said 4.
I can think of 5th. Who's a powerful
Well, that's your problem.
alderman?
Okay, stop right there. You can't think of 5. It's Tony. Okay, don't even get me started on Durban.
I could do it.
In the middle of the housing crisis.
Do it. I can do the 5th.
Hey, let's hear that Durban story.
You want to hear a Durban story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Middle of the housing crisis.
Yeah.
Middle. 2007, 2008. I'm sitting in the green room at Fox off a lake in Michigan. Okay, I'm sitting in the green room, ready to go on to talk about.
You're sitting on the green room at Fox?
Fox 32.
Okay, local Fox.
Local Fox, channel 32.
You're not with Sean Hannity.
No. Sean Hannity wasn't even around. I don't even think back then, but it doesn't matter. So I'm down the green room, Fox Local 32. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there in the middle of the housing crisis. You've got see-through buildings going because there's nobody working because there's no money flowing anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere. It's a complete dead stop.
Yeah.
Right? We're at 60 months inventory on real estate. Blood in the street. Property values are dropping 10% a month. It's horrible. Okay. Mm-hmm. In rolls Dick Durbin with his little entourage. I go, "Hi, Senator Durbin. My name is David Hochberg. How are you?" He's like, "Hi, David. What do you do?" I go, "I'm a mortgage professional. You guys are blaming me and my industry for the total collapse of the entire housing market." He's like, "Oh, nice to meet you." He goes, "How are things?" I go, "How are things?" I go, that's like being in Florida and asking them, "Is it raining? How are things?" Hey, I'm down in Nassau, Bahamas. How are things right now? How's Dorian? How's that 8 feet of water in your basement? So I go, "How are things?" I go, "They're horrible and they're getting worse." "What do you mean?" I go, what do I mean? Let's see. Congress just passed a bill to increase conforming loan limits in a bunch of counties that are politically connected, to increase the conforming loan limits so people could borrow money cheaply and keep their businesses going. What do you mean? I go, oh my God, are you freaking kidding me? What do I mean? I go, Senator, in all due respect, 3 blocks away from here, you've got buildings half completed buildings, see-through buildings, which means you've got floors poured, concrete floored, and you could see right through them because there's nothing going on. There's no workers. There's no union jobs going on. There's no transfer taxes. People are staying at home and not working because the liquidity in the marketplace to fund things is not there because we need higher conforming loan limits here in Illinois, which we don't have. And I was getting on him. And then his staff is like seeing that I'm not real happy with, I'm getting a little aggressive with here. And then all of a sudden, miraculously, he's got to be pulled out and taken on air. This is the number 2 or 3 guy in the Senate in the middle of the housing crisis. When the Democrats controlled the Senate, he couldn't deliver the bacon for his home state during the housing crisis. And it was like, I was talking to him like, what are you kidding me? How is it bad? It's horrible.
Yeah. Okay. I was not in the room.
I was in the room.
Okay,
and
so
you can believe me or not, right, with your mask on there. Okay, I'm telling you right now.
So I can't.
It's 100% true. Guys, strike me dead right now if I'm lying.
But Durbin, good Democrat, and stands up to Trump.
Here we go.
I'm going to vote for him again.
I'm happy for you.
You're going to vote for Willie Wilson?
Okay. I love Willie.
All right. Willie Wilson. Here you go.
I love Willie Wilson,
who, by the way, is a frequent guest in this show.
I love him. I think he's great.
Yeah, he wants reparations, which I support him on that. Do you support him on reparations?
I support Willie Wilson. I think he's great.
But how about on reparations? Do you support him on reparations?
I don't know how you're going to determine that, but...
Well, that's the number one plank in his platform, and now you're saying you don't know if you say you support him 100%.
I need to find out more about the reparations, what his stance on.
Well, you just said you support him 100%. Now
yes,
you say
if he supports reparations, I support reparations.
All right, so there you
go. I think he's great.
Okay.
I think he's great because he doesn't take any crap and he tells it like it is.
Well, I don't know how much he tells it like it is because he supports reparations, which I say, Willie, I'm with you 100% of reparations. And then he says, well, I'm for...
how are you going to determine that?
I'm for, right. No, he says I'm for the Trump tax cut. I go, well, Willie, how are you going to pay for the reparations?
Right.
I'm for reparations.
And the Trump tax cut has been proven hasn't worked.
Yeah, it hasn't worked, but you still need money. If you're going to give out money, David Hochberg, you got to have money.
I fully understand
that. I'm thinking it's not much different conversation than the one you had with
think
Durbin.
He's fascinating, though.
Listen, Willie Wilson, by the way, he's a great guest for you having him on your show.
Sure. I'd love to have Willie Wilson on
your show.
But WLS 10 until 9 on Saturday.
I was
Home Sweet Home Chicago.
Yeah. My sense is that Willie Wilson cannot get elected senator in the state of Illinois. And it's going to be difficult for him to make the ballot, although I do believe in open ballots. All right. We've gone over our time for you, Mr. Hochberg.
So let's get about casinos.
I think they're great.
Before I want to ask him about get his predictions on the
Bulls will win 10 games.
Wait, hold on. I'm writing this.
The Bulls maybe will win 12. And you owe me a...
I do owe you.
Obviously, you got fired. You still owe me a pastrami sandwich at... pastrami at...
we made a bet last time.
Where's that place over on Roosevelt?
Manny's?
Manny's Deli.
You
owe me a corned beef pastrami sandwich with latke and matzo ball soup.
I won the last year, though.
Yeah, and I brought you a corned beef sandwich, didn't I?
You did. All right, so...
you reneged on your...
All right, so just so you know, the Bulls...
Your bet.
Well, I haven't reneged. I haven't officially reneged, which I haven't seen you in a little while.
Oh, right. I'd like to see you eat a corned beef sandwich with that goofy thing.
No, I don't think I could. All right, how many games do you think the Bulls?
12. They're horrible.
12?
They're horrible.
All right, I'm going to make you a bet.
You would be a better point guard than anybody on that team. The Blackhawks win more games again this year than the Chicago Bulls.
All right, how many did the Blackhawks win?
The Blackhawks will win probably 43, 45.
All right, and the Bears?
The Bears will go 11-5.
And
we'll crush the Packers on Thursday night.
Okay, and will they 11-5 is good enough to make the playoffs?
11-5 will win the division, and they'll be in the championship game of the NFC.
And they'll lose. They will not make it to.
I did not say that. I said they will be in the championship game.
So you're holding off on your prediction.
I think if Trubisky grows and matures and becomes a better quarterback and identifies open receivers downfield and he gets the ball to them. They have talented receivers. They've upgraded their receiver core. They've upgraded their backfield. They've got a great line. It's on him.
Okay, and let's see.
They have a great defense, a phenomenal defense. Those guys are animals.
All right.
And those guys are ready to knock some heads. It's going to be awesome to watch that defense.
And Cubs?
Cubs, I got a bad feeling about the Cubs. Too many mistakes. Great team, very talented team. I just think they've blown too many opportunities to run away with this thing. And hopefully in the next 25, 30 games, they can pull it together and go on a 10, 15 game run. Zobrist is back, veteran leadership. Rizzo's back. He's healthy. You're getting your catcher back. Contreras, he's an animal. He's a great baseball player. And, you've got all the assets there. You just got to play. You just got to freaking get some runs and give your pitcher some support. White Sox are a hot mess, so forget about them.
I love the White Sox.
I know you do, but they're a disaster.
They're not doing well. So I say the Cubs are going to make the playoffs.
You think they'll make it?
Yes, I do.
Second wild card or third or first place?
I think they can catch St. Louis.
You think they can catch it? It's going to be a great end of the year because they play St. Louis 7 to 10 times.
Yeah, so I mean,
that's it.
That's it.
That's your season.
They could catch St. Louis.
You go on a run. You start burning.
I think the Bears will make the playoffs. I think the Bears will be in the NFC Championship, but they will not make the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And I think my beloved Bulls will win the championship and will be celebrating.
What year?
Grant Park.
2047.
2000, year 2000, and I'll reserve you a spot at the front.
You have to admit, it's been a disappointing season. It's been.
Is that your Blackhawks thing on your phone?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Is that a Bulls on your hat? Yeah,
excellent podcasting here.
It's great. It's great visual for a podcast.
Anyway, I'm going to go home
off the road into
I'm going to go home and take some painkillers and go back to bed because this stuff is working.
Are you awake right now?
Yeah, I am awake.
This is a great show.
I am totally awake, and somehow or other I've made it through this show. I don't know how I did that. I couldn't have done it without my good friend Dr. D over there, David Hochberg, Atiba Buchanan. Thank you very much for coming in. By the way, you know what they call him back home in Alton, Illinois? They call him. Yes.
Oh.
You know what they call him back home in Alton?
The guy that does the strip club commercials?
Yes, the guy who does. They call him White Lightning. Good job, Dr. D.
Nice
Give yourself
job.
a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Hey, and remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, chicago.suntimes.com/pages/Joravsky, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you download podcasts. Downloaders, we live stream this program Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel, and on Facebook. Find us at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show. Once we hit 2,000 likes, we will have our next caption contest. Head over to the Ben Joravsky Show Facebook page. Give us a like if you've yet to. We will see you all tomorrow. Maybe.